Okay. Hey, I'm Lou. They asked me to say something, but I'm feeling very uncreative right now. But you're listening to the Scene World podcast, so that's nice.
That's very creative. My God.
I love it. I love it. Hey, it's us. It's the Scene World podcast. We probably sound way better because we're using different software. And in a minute, we'll be talking to the Space Quest historian.
That's a lie because we already did that.
I
last
know
time.
that. I know that, but I'm still enjoying the switchover. So in a minute, we'll be talking to the Space Quest historian.
Exactly.
But before that, we have some news. So,
exactly.
I don't know. Do you want to start or should I?
Yeah, I mean, I have some news indeed.
Okay.
Yeah, should I start with all my news?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Dude,
why not?
Dude, how many newses do you have?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay, do
8.
Do 4.
8.
I've got 4 pieces, so you do
Okay.
4. I'll do 4, then you can do 4.
Okay. For the intro.
Yes.
Dune Awakening is going to be released on May the 20th, and there is a trailer and there's a beta sign up available.
Okay.
The homepage is duneawakening.com.
Easy.
And it's an action adventure, so no real-time strategy game and no other kind of adventure.
Okay.
So that's that. And another game that has been announced by Night Dive Studios on June the 26th is the launch of the System Shock 2 25th Anniversary Remaster. And you can actually pre-order it via Steam.
Okay.
Then Retro Games Limited announced that the full-size Amiga replica is delayed by legal action.
Not surprising. Not surprising.
Yeah, Hyperion. Despite they made a deal with Retro Games Limited, didn't honor the deal, and now they're making trouble. Anyway,
doing a Darth Vader there. They're altering the deal. Pray they don't alter it further.
It will be called the A1200. Okay.
Wait. Slow down there, Kimosabe.
Yeah.
So it's a full-size Amiga replica, like the 64 Maxi or whatever. Yes.
Max. It was called Max.
Yes, okay.
Don't make it Maxi.
Well, that's what it's often called. It was a Mini and the Maxi, but whatever.
Perhaps in Germany, but in the English name is, and we are speaking English here. It's the Max.
Okay.
Or the full size.
Okay.
As the British would say.
Okay. Either way, though, so we're talking about the same thing. Okay. So they had the A500 Mini,
right?
And this is a full size version with a keyboard and everything. Okay.
Yeah.
What does it look like?
Good question. I don't know.
Because an A2000, there was an Amiga 2500. It was an A2000 with some extra stuff. An A2000 is a box with a with a detachable keyboard. It's a desktop computer. But I was under the impression that they were making a full size Amiga 500.
But I already explained to you the reason why. Because
I understand. I understand the legal reasons. I'm saying that are they changing the way that it looks to make it something that is not an Amiga 500?
No idea.
If you do a Google search for Amiga 2500, you'll find a bunch of old Amiga 2000s with I don't know, it had 2 floppy drives. I don't know what the thing was. It had options. There were a ton of different things. But yeah, so yeah, it's just
I don't know.
I'm just curious what they're going to do, because it was originally going to be, from what I remember, it was going to be a full-size Amiga 500, because the Mini looked like a tiny little Amiga 500, like this thing.
Right.
So
Right.
So, are they still making it like that? Because you would think that
No idea. They
You would think
didn't
the
include that
legal-
in the announcement.
okay, because the legal issues I would imagine would be the image as well, because you're making a thing that looks like an Amiga, right? So maybe they've had to go off and make something that doesn't look like an Amiga. I don't know. But the 2500 is confusing because when I think of an Amiga 2500, I think of an Amiga 2000, which is, a desktop box that you plug a keyboard into. And I don't think that they'd be making that. That doesn't seem like the thing that they would be doing.
I have no idea.
So, okay. Well,
Yeah. News number 4. Prague Studio is thrilled to announce that they launched Homebrew Factory, a new platform that allows gamers to purchase homebrew games and help creators bring their games to life.
okay. Well, okay.
That's the first 4 news. Your turn.
Okay. So, I got a couple things. There is the who has done this? SGW32 is the guy's handle. His name is Fedor Zagamenov, however you pronounce that. He has
Segamenov, is he a hedgehog?
what?
Segamenov, is
Oh.
he a hedgehog?
Maybe, I don't know. He's making a thing called the Kung Fu SID, which is an open source SID emulator. SID emulator. Oh my god, I can't talk today.
Sid reincarnation
Yeah.
number 15.
Yeah, heavily inspired by the Swin SID and ARM SID. So, yeah, it's operating on a GD32F405R GT6 microcontroller. For all y'all that means anything for. So they're looking for contributors to this, I guess. There are some limitations I'm seeing. I'm looking at the website or the GitHub, in which there is no switch for where'd it go? I've lost it already. There's no switch to go between 6581 and 8580, and there's no paddle support at the moment. So yeah, that's there. I'll put a link to where you can
Awesome.
check that out.
Awesome.
Also, in the realm of hardware, HKZ Lab. I don't know if that's Lab or if it's HKZ. I have no idea.
Oh, I love how Americans, because I'm into Formula One, how they do the German Automobile Club, ADAC, and they always say EDAC.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy crap! It's 4 capital letters. That normally indicates it's an abbreviation, not a word. Not a word.
Oh, but every abbreviation we have is a word. I mean, we love doing that.
But what is wrong?
NASA, NASA.
Yeah.
I mean that's
But on the other hand, you say FBI and not V.
well, because that's not convenient to do that with. If it's something like ADAC, ADAC, there's vowels there. You can make that a word. You can say that as a word. So yeah, if there is a word that can be made out of it, the government loves that. Like half the bills they make are like the Hope Act or the Butts Act or something, But anyway,
Dodge.
Doge, yeah, uh-huh.
Doge.
Yeah.
Doge.
Yep. Yeah.
It sounds like douche, like douchebag.
Kind of.
Like run by a
That's-
couple of idiots.
That's accurate. Accurate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, But HKZ Lab is developing a Commodore 128 SRAM adapter.
Ooh.
So it implements a static RAM replacement for the dynamic RAM that lives on a C128's motherboard. Only the 310381R7 motherboard at the moment. But I guess it's the only one they've tested it on, but I guess maybe, you might be able to do it. And you need to remove and socket the original memory ICs on the board to use it. So there is you can order a project at the project board at PCB Way. I think you got to do it yourself. You got to make the thing yourself. You got to do some soldering. It doesn't look like there's that much soldering, but nevertheless, it's beyond my hot glue gun soldering
Capabilities.
skills. Yeah.
Ooh.
So, but we'll put a link to that if that's the thing that you're into, replacing your dynamic RAM with some static RAM. Hey, there's a GitHub right here. So
Awesome.
we'll put that.
Yeah.
While we're on GitHub, here's another one. The ZIG64 emulator. So it's so I guess ZIG is an emulator, and this is an emulator core for a 6510 core for the ZIG emulator. So it's cycle accurate.
6510. Is that the VIC 20?
No, 6510 is what's in it's in the C64.
Okay.
VIC-
Oh yeah,
VIC
yeah.
20
The
is-
other one is 6502, right?
Yeah,
I
well,
always
the
confuse
generic,
the two.
the basic chip, I believe, is the 6502. That's what is. in
I
VIC 20.
always
That's the-
confuse the two.
Yeah, that's the thing. And then there was a modified version that they gave to. There was one that they gave to Atari. I think it was. I don't know what it was. But also the Apple II used a 6502.
That would
So-
sound nice.
Yeah.
ATARI.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. The 1541, 1571, all that stuff, they use a 6502. But the actual computer uses a 6510. So this is a
Right.
6510 emulation, so it's cycle accurate.
Right.
It has video synchronization, so it aligns the CPU cycles with PAL and NTSC video, which is kind of what you have to do anyway. Advanced SID register tracking and decoding, whatever that means. It can load programs because what's the point if you can't do that? Robust disassembler.
Well, you can
and
look at it
instruction.
because it looks nice.
Yeah, and you can test programs with that. So there's a GitHub with information about that. So you can check that all out if you need another C64 emulator for some reason.
Ooh.
And finally, for my news for today, Lukash, who is a musician, done a lot of C64 remixes.
Yeah.
Has
Rings a bell.
Yes, he has announced a new album, Home Arcade, which has 13 tracks. I don't know. I guess these aren't. I don't think they're remixes, or they're original. So that's there. You can check out the Bandcamp page, which we'll put a link in the description to. So you all should check that out because
Awesome.
Lukash
Awesome.
has some really good stuff.
Awesome.
So that's mine.
Awesome. Yeah, well, so let's continue here
Yes.
with music as well. Tronimal,
Hey,
who also calls himself Yogi, as we learned
yes.
with the interview we did after Gamescom, finally released the Virtual Boy music ROM of the album Robonaut to the public for 100 euros on HIO. It's yours.
Dag,
Yeah.
100 euros.
Yeah. Well, it's a rarity, and so is the ROM, I guess.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and other news. Crazy Chicken Card 4 has been released, which is actually called in Germany Moorhuhn Card 4. And
What card for?
Moorhuhn. It's a German name.
What's it mean?
So it means, well, chicken.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it is the latest installment of that card series by Korean software, by Michael Platz, who we interviewed in our developer from Gamescom interview. And yeah, that's their latest project. And I actually got a review code for Frank, so he will do a review about that. And here is the interesting thing. Despite the original English name of the game franchise is called Crazy Chicken, he tries to make the German name Moorhuhn the default for all racing kart racing games from the franchise, with number 4 and going forward. But since they are not owner of the IP, but just license it to make a game out of it, other part from the series, because originally it's a crosshair shooter, could still bear the name Crazy Chicken instead of Moorhuhn. Yeah. So anyway, there is a whole article about the game franchise on English Wikipedia if you look into Crazy Chicken.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. And also, we had an interview for the podcast with Francesco Gonzalez, who calls himself Grundislav Games. That one you missed, unfortunately. But he finished his game Rosewater. Rosewater is a point-and-click adventure that is actually rotoscoped, what Jordan Mechner did for Prince of Persia and also The Last Express. So it took him 5 years to actually finish the game, and he will be one of our next guests, and AJ will be this time with us. That's good. So we will learn more about that. Anyway, I'm linking the press release from Heidelberg application, which is nice because Heidelberg is like 15 minutes away from me.
Yeah.
So the publisher is actually in the next corner from where I live, which is quite funny that an American indie developer is cooperating with a German publisher that is actually next to me. But that's the thing. That's the thing. Yeah. The last news, unfortunately not an easy one. So I was asked recently by a friend who is co-organizing a K-pop event in Germany in summer, and he asked me like, do you have any connections to the scene? And I was like, not K-pop but J-pop. So I decided to email Pierre Sorensen, who was the main organizer of the J-pop con in Copenhagen, Denmark. And unfortunately I got an email back from Ida, the current main organizer, and she wrote that he left the organization between 2016 and 2017 and unfortunately passed away in 2019. So that's quite a shock. Also because he was known to have the largest game collection in Europe. So he was quite a big shot, and yeah. So she wrote to me, Per was undoubtedly a huge part of J-PopCon, but he left the organization and unfortunately he passed away in 2019. I'm so sorry to be the bearer of such news. Yeah. So
shame.
that's about it. But as we learned J-PopCon is still going strong after 23 years. So it's still the main J-pop event, the biggest event in Denmark, where they also held the national competition for the actual big popcorn, J-PopCon in Tokyo, Japan. So, yeah, so it's actually the official partner of the bigger event, the, I don't know how you say it, core event in Japan, actually. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the news, and I thought I would mention that.
Yeah, I want to jump back real quick to what you're talking about, the A500 Mini. So I'm looking at I'm looking at Retro Games Limited's statement about this. So they said that, and this was posted on March 20th. So they had plans to release the A500, the full size sequel to the A500 Mini, which would be the big one. First quarter,
as I said previously,
in the first quarter of 25. Hyperion initiated legal action against Everything Amiga in 2018. And in 2019, they tried, without success, to block them from doing the A500 Mini, despite the fact that they're not allowed to do that under a 2009 settlement. So the manufacturing and retail has postponed doing anything. However, they did say at the end of it that that the machine is now going to be called the A1200, not 2500, the A1200, which
I said A 1200. That's what I said.
I heard 2500.
You misheard
2500 because I was saying the 2000 is a box. The A1200, that makes more sense because that was an A500 like thing, except it had the EGA and whatnot. So
I didn't say 1200. I said 1200.
Okay. Well, that's
my bad.
Either way. So that makes more sense because then it is an all-in-one, like the 500 or the 1200 or the 600 or whatever.
Right.
That makes more sense with that. So cool. That's that covers that. And I also wanted to just clarify, because later in the interview, I don't know if this is going to make it into the interview, but we're discussing the difference between component video or composite video, it's a separate Luma Chroma on a C64, and S video. So the difference is that the Chroma signal on a C64 is slightly hotter on the 64 in separate Luma Chroma than it is in S video.
Hotter?
Yes, and some, I guess maybe more voltage or whatever. Some machines, some things, adapters or TVs or whatever, don't like that little extra signal through there. If you put in a resistor, an inline resistor in that to kind of sap some of that away, then it's fine. Then it's totally 100% compatible. But straight off, that one signal is has a little bit too much to it.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. So it's basically what you do with the Mega Drive controllers on the C64.
Essentially, yes.
You actually got reverse Schottky diodes to weaken the signals.
Yeah.
Because they can actually fry the components in your computer.
Right.
I hope that, however, that the Chroma Luma signal is not actually frying something.
I don't think it fries.
Because
anything.
I didn't hear that.
No, I mean
I didn't hear that.
I think it's just that some things like your video capture just they can't detect it properly because the signal isn't what they expect.
Well, they do, because it's officially supported. That's why I got the capture card, actually.
You said in the S video it didn't work.
No, I said that that S video and Chroma Luma isn't the same. That's all I said.
Okay.
I said it's almost identical, but it's not identical. And you just confirmed what I said.
Yeah.
It's not identical.
Right.
But I didn't know why it isn't identical. I just knew that sometimes it doesn't work.
Right.
But the capture card from, I think it's called HD60, because it supports up to 60 frames per second, from Elgato, actually supports Chroma Luma.
Mhm.
And because the retro cable, that's what they call it, is sold out since years, and the capture card is actually end of line,
Yeah.
out of service.
Right.
But they liked the Project Scene World. They actually gifted me one
Aw.
and sent me one for free from stock. So they still have some stock left, despite they're not selling it anymore. But I received a gift.
Nice.
Because the only other option is to solder such a cable yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do that.
But thanks for clarifying the difference,
Yes.
because I didn't know the difference. I only knew there was a difference.
Yeah. For a lot of things, like again, that's I've got S video running into there. I don't have any resistors in there. It's just straight up whatever the signal is. That TV's been handling that fine for 7 years, something like that. So
And now you know the reason why.
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah, so what I said is, because perhaps that is why you misconfused it. The software doesn't detect the signal properly.
right? Yes.
So it actually displays incorrectly
Right.
what is the input signal like. But it doesn't matter because it actually displays correctly. So
Okay.
the hardware can correctly process it, the device itself.
Right.
But the software says it's incorrect. Actually, perhaps it's not incorrect. Perhaps it's just my problem, because it detects this at 25 hertz, which is actually correct if you consider that there is interlace, and 25 by 2 is
50.
actually 50.
Right.
So perhaps it's just me reading it incorrectly now that I think about it. Because that's actually true. Because what you actually have is an interlace signal, because we are talking about CRTs, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's actually, so if that is actually interlace, then it's making sense, right? Then it's 25 hertz is actually making sense.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it's probably just me reading it incorrectly.
Either way, that's how S video and component are different. Composite are different. So.
And the reason why I actually bought that card is because of the Gamescom online event. But
Right.
then it turned out that the driver of Blue Crash, my Windows 10 installation, as soon as I connected, so I ended up doing composite instead with a different capture card. So
Yeah.
I actually bought the capture card in vain, so to speak. But I mean, nowadays we are at Windows 11, and blue screens are a lot rarer nowadays. So perhaps it works. I didn't try it ever since.
Give it a shot.
Perhaps I should. Because I figured, despite it's not officially supported anymore, if you go with the software Driver Max, where you can download two drivers per day for free, in the freeware version, there's actually a driver online to be found that works with Windows 10 and 11. So it's probably something like community patched, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, give it a shot.
But I did that actually a couple of times. For example, when I interviewed Jeroen Tel,
Yes.
he told me in 2012, before he had his new setup, he told me he can only do video calls in black and white because he messed up the settings of his webcams, and he
How does
couldn't
that
find a way to make it color again. So I told him to install Driver Max and run the tool, and it actually found a newer driver than what he had installed, and the driver actually did reset the camera to default settings. So we were actually able to make the interview in color.
We should.
Which is totally weird because, I'm an interviewer. I'm not supposed to give IT support to the people I'm going to interview.
But we seem to keep doing it.
Yeah, right. Like, I mean, like, yeah, I'm like, Jeroen, I'm not going to make an interview with you in black and white. That's not going to happen. I'm sorry. So, yeah.
Hey, you go for that art house feel,
Yeah, every time we provide technical support for our guests, we should receive a fee or something for being nice and helping fixing their issues.
Troubleshooting their webcams.
All right. Yeah. Well, except that one time where actually NVIDIA made a mistake with their game-ready drivers. So all of the Logitech webcams were only showing black and white in Skype. So I actually had to use the web version in Skype for a few weeks because it was the only version running on WebRTC, and that was the only application where the camera would work in color. So yeah, that's a bit weird because it's because in this case Logitech, NVIDIA, and Microsoft, 3 companies, had to work together finding out the root cause and fix it, and they actually managed to do that. And I remember you were so pissed, despite it was not my fault, that you actually offered me sending a different camera, which wouldn't be successful because I told you it's a driver issue, which is weird. Like what has NVIDIA to do with webcam? I don't know, but obviously they did some changes in the DirectX behavior or whatever, Let's go into the
Yes, indeed.
lashed out interview of the Space Quest historian and go to Denmark. Yay! Woo! But before we go to our guests and ask you to subscribe and like and activate the bell icon when you are engaging with the YouTube version of this podcast episode, we have some last minute news that I want to cover before the actual interview starts with the Space Quest historian. So, last moment news. Epic has a new thing. Free mobile games now are released every Thursday. Last Thursday they started with Doodle Kingdom Medieval, and well, it goes on every Thursday for iOS and Android in the EU, because as we know, for iOS there is a third-party Epic Store that's only available in EU and soon other selected countries. Other news, Asgard Fall, that we had an interview about a while ago, has been released on Steam's Early Access, so check that out. And last but not least, there is a guide how to get started with the new FreeOS 1.4 release, Candidate 1, an update that has been in the making since the last 3 years. So enjoy, and now let's hop to our guests, and don't forget, like and subscribe and ring the bell icon on YouTube for our podcast and the YouTube channel of ours. Thanks a lot and enjoy. So, today we have another guest. he's leaning back already in astounding.
Your so was legendarily loud. Good lord.
Yeah, well, I'm very excited for today because we are talking to the Space Quest historian, also called Truls Pleimert, from Denmark. Welcome to the show.
Guten Tag, wie geht's?
Nice. Very good.
Oh yeah,
Hope
four
you,
more
hope you are
words. that I
doing well
can't-
as well.
Yes, I'm doing very well. Thank you so much
Ooh,
for
nice.
inviting me.
Yeah, it's amazing because I did some research on you, as I always did on our guests, and what I found in the Space Quest Omnipedia is about you is he is Danish but speaks extremely fluent English,
Uh,
and was like, wow, you must be a unicorn. So that is weird. I didn't know that it's rare for Danish people to speak extremely fluent English.
also, did you say Spanish or did?
I heard that too.
No,
Yes.
Danish.
Yeah, you said Spanish.
Because I was like, yeah,
That's
might
it,
might want
Spanish.
to
Anyway,
correct that, but
Yeah. Let's
No,
try
no,
this
no.
again.
It's
One more time.
Okay. Okay. One more time. Okay. So, when I did a research about you, I found out in the Space Quest historian entry of the Space Quest Omnipedia that they write, he is Danish but speaks extremely fluent English. And I was wondering why they mentioned that as a special feature about you.
I'm not entirely sure. Most Danish people speak perfectly good English. Sometimes we have a bit of a weird accent, and it kind of comes out in a bit like a silly way. But I don't know. Apparently, I speak good English. I love getting YouTube comments that go, oh, why do you swear so much? I thought all North Americans watch their language and stuff. And like, I'm not North American. We don't really care about swearing around here. So,
Ooh.
oh yeah.
Beep, 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 beep.
Yeah. And as a North American, I also have the foulest mouth on the planet.
Oh.
So I have no
That
idea.
actually
what
puts
that's
me
about.
quite at ease. Yeah, I got one. I got a comment a while ago, a long time ago. It was like, "Why do you swear so much? I thought you were a follower of Jesus." Like, I don't know where you got that from. I respect your faith and all that, but why would you put that on me?
Yeah.
Anyway, perhaps we should start with the beginnings. I mean, what was your beginning in going into computers and obviously computer games and stuff?
Well, I'll try not to take up all of your time, but yeah, always been fascinated with the stuff. So I was born in 1980, and my dad worked as an electrical engineer, the sort of circuit boards, soldering shit together, and that kind of thing. So he was also very technically inclined, and when I was a wee little kid, he built sort of a proto computer in his basement. It just had like a little LCD strip and a little numeric keyboard when you could play like a little Wheel of Fortune kind of thing on it. And I was like, yeah, this is the future. And then when I was 7 or 8 years old, he brought home our family's first home computer, which was the Commodore 64. Love that old thing. Oh yeah, big Commodore 64. Which is why I thought you invited me on the show in the first place. But yeah, I grew up on with Commodore 64 games, and spent because my dad brought it home for like he was going to teach himself programming. He was going to get into the computer age, and once he brought that thing in the door, he never saw it again. My brother and I just completely monopolized the thing. So yeah, I had my first forays into BASIC and played a shit ton of games, obviously. And we had those big disc boxes with pirated games because you could copy floppies like there was no tomorrow, all that sort of stuff. So good times. And then we entered the PC age, got a 386, started playing adventure games, which was hot shit, late 80s, early 90s. And one of my earliest memories was playing Space Quest 2 at like your parents go to a dinner party somewhere, they gotta put the kit somewhere, and they stuck me in front of a computer, and the computer happened to have Space Quest 2 on it, and I just spent the entire evening walking up and down the walls on that first screen of Space Quest 2, and I was just fucking sold. That's it. I was just a little sci-fi child, little sci-fi geek before that, so anything that had to do with space, I was like, I'm in. So yeah, well, there we go. And then I get my own computer 46. I get the Space Quest collection. I've already played them all, pirated floppies and shit like that. But now I got the actual Space Quest collection, and the internet is invented. So first thing I do is like hop on local library internet, get down there, search for Space Quest. Up comes the Roger Wilco's Virtual Broom Closet fan site, and I sent the webmaster an email, and we became good friends. His name is Jess Morissette. Lovely, lovely person. We're still good friends to this day. We started swapping like floppy disks in the mail. I'd send them to West Virginia, where he lives, and he'd send them back to Denmark. And I contributed, I contributed to his
Wow.
website that way, to send text files in snail mail to West Virginia. That's how I got my first internet publication, so to speak. Then we got internet at home. I started writing an FAQ on Space Quest, which turned into this massive tome. It's like pre-Wikipedia, just all the information I could ever gather about Space Quest. And that's when I started calling myself the Space Quest historian, which is patently untrue. I'm not a historian in any shape or form, but...
And you not only cover
Oh, no,
Space
yeah,
Quest.
I'm an adventure game fan foremost, but I sort of painted myself into a bit of a corner with the whole Space Quest historian, because years later, YouTube is invented, and I watched someone do a Let's Play. I think it was Jacksepticeye. It was a very famous YouTuber now. He was still sort of getting his first like 10,000 subscribers or whatever back when I found him, and I was like, yeah, I kind of want to do that. Let's see how that works. So I figured out how to use OBS and started a YouTube channel, and just called it Space Quest Historian, because I'm probably just going to be playing some Space Quest games or whatever. Is there a cow in the background somewhere? What was that?
Sounded like it, yeah. Sounded like a cow.
Almost. It's I was muting my phone, but I had a video up of Lauren Bacall trying coffee.
That's
And it
Okay.
played
Very
before.
delicious.
Yes, it played before I got a chance
That's
to mute it.
delightfully disturbing. Thank you. So anyway, I play a bunch of adventure games on my YouTube channel. I kind of locked myself into the Space Quest historian thing, and I was going to change it after I started figuring, okay, this is actually fun. I'm going to keep doing it. I was like, oh, I should probably change it. Well, then I started doing collaborations with people, and they started referring to me as the Space Quest historian. And at one point, Danny Avedon from Game Grumps found me and gave me a shout out on the Game Grumps channel, and I went from 300 subscribers to like 14 or 1600 overnight. And so, okay, I guess changing it is a bit too late now. I guess I'm the Space Quest historian for the rest of eternity. That's fine. That's fine. I'll take it.
I mean, the angry video game nerd used to be the angry NES game nerd, and that he also renamed
Yeah, but
himself
it
afterwards.
was close,
but,
and Lazy Game Reviews became LGR. It's just an acronym.
Yeah.
Right. And speaking about cows, by the way, that was one of the best features when I got Double Dragon 2 for the arcade behind me. That they on the second mission they have real digitized cow sounds in the level playing randomly.
Beautiful. Yeah. We're very famous for exporting bacon in Denmark, so we're into the piggies. Apparently, bacon, cookies, and carrots is our big export. I don't know why he got into that.
Interestingly, the cow sound actually had their revival with years later.
I remember. Launch the cow.
Yeah. But that's not adventure. That's more jump and run.
He
Yeah,
did
it's
do
not
an adventure game called The Neverhood, Dr. Napple, which was very well loved, despite being sort of a Myst clone, the claymation thing. Yeah. Which I haven't played because around the time I thought, maybe I should check it out. First of all, it was a Myst clone. Not terribly interested in those. I don't like, I call them lever pulling simulators, because you flip a lever and then you go, what the fuck did that do?
Right.
And second of all, it turns out that Dr. Napple is a bit of an asshole. So I didn't.
Yeah, I learned about that later on
Too
as
bad.
well.
Yeah.
But still, I got his 2 Earthworm Jim.
Oh yeah, I used to
collection
love
books.
the. I loved the Earthworm
Regardless.
Jim cartoon series, the animated series when I was a kid. It was fantastic. Dan Castellaneta, voice of Homer Simpson, was Earthworm Jim, and there was a lot of screaming and a lot of really bizarre humor in it, and I loved it.
Right.
That
That
was
means
one
you
of
can
those.
be an asshole and still be brilliant.
That was one of those like mid '90s cartoons that fell at the same time as like Ren and
Oh
Stimpy
yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
That really kind of.
And then
Right.
later
Yeah.
later along comes like Invader Zim, which I also at that point I was well beyond my teen years, but I was like, yeah, this is my jam. I'm into this. Again, a lot of screaming, a lot of industrial music in the background. I was like, yep, I'm into this, and the shit they got away with for a children's show,
Yeah.
it's fantastic. Oh well, that was a slight detour.
Right.
Or we were on cows, and now we're on
Well,
TV shows, and we're slowly edging our way back.
right. Right. Yeah, it's quite interesting because here's a special thing with you about other YouTubers that I watch. You actually have very detailed knowledge about the games. When I watch other YouTubers, especially the younger generation, like in their 20s, I often feel the urge to leave a comment like, "You missed this fact. You
Oh, I
missed
get those
that
too.
fact.
Oh,
You
I
are
get
wrong
those.
here. You are a bit wrong there." Yeah, right.
Whenever I have to explain like technical shit, like I've done a couple of videos about like glitches in the Space Quest games and like how these timers work. There are I can't take credit for the content of those videos because I've a crack team of nerds on my Discord who go in and find all this shit, and they have to very painfully and very patiently explain to me how this stuff works so I can put it in a video.
Wow. Yeah. I'm not a programmer either, so I don't know how those random number generators work for when which event happens in the era games and why and how often. And I
I,
understand.
I've,
I
I've,
understand.
I've, I've sort of dabbled in like a programming, but I'm not a programmer. I did like Adventure Game Studio. It's a scripting language. It's pretty much like if then else type of stuff. If you're really advanced, you can get that thing to do amazing stuff. I'm not one of those guys. I do if then else spaghetti code. So if when they start explaining to me like the order in which stuff happens, this variable causes that to happen, I can sort of get it. But I did a video at one point about how the Astro Chicken machine in Space Quest 3 has a sort of grace. We call it a pity win. You're supposed to get 10 successful landings of that stupid fucking chicken in order to receive a secret message that you then have to decode. But if you play the game and fail 10 times, then you get sort of a pity win. It displays the coded message anyway. But there are some very specific rules in the code that explain, first of all, how you're going to get the message in the first place, and then what has to occur in order to get the pity win. And so, poor soul, the person who found it, his name is Dark Soul, on the Discord, he had to explain to me 3 or 4 times how this works. And eventually he just started, "Do you want me to draw you a picture?" It's like, "Yes, please." Finally, I got it right. I had recorded a whole video, edited a whole video, sent it to him, and he went, "No, that's not it." I had to redo it.
Yeah. Well, you could have asked him to speak it and then used your voice artificially over it.
Well, no, because the thing with programmers and people who understand programming languages, bless their heart, they're geniuses and magicians at what they do, but there tends to be a sort of disconnect between when you're so deep into something, and you have such intricate knowledge of it, the translation mechanism in your brain starts switching off. So you kind and I do the same with adventure games. Like when I talk to non-adventure game players or non-Sierra fans and stuff like that, and I start getting into terminology that I sort of assume everyone is familiar with, but they're not.
Like
Well,
parser
parsers,
or
yeah,
something.
and timer bugs and soft locks and all this sort of stuff. And to people who play computer games and play adventure games, and like you say timer puzzle, okay, you say a maze puzzle or dialogue puzzle, dialogue tree, that sort of stuff. That's all. We all just assume everyone knows what that is, but not really.
Yeah, but those are not Sierra typical, you know? You can also find um, those words in
Oh
other
yeah, but if you talk to someone
games,
who doesn't like
adventure
play
games.
computer games at all, it's like, oh, these are toys for the children,
Right.
and it's like, well, then they're not gonna get it.
That's true. That's true. That's true. That's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, it's also interesting because, for example, I'm more the other side of the spectrum. I'm more the Lucasfilm, LucasArts gamer, not the Sierra
And
one. Right.
one of the people get very surprised when I say that I've completed more LucasArts games than I have Sierra games. People assume, because I've painted myself into the Space Quest corner and the Space Quest historian, that I must be a Sierra fan. I've had like descriptions of me always saying like he's a Sierra fan who does deep dives on the Space Quest games primarily, and I'm not really a Sierra fan. It's only very recently that I played through like the King's Quest series. I'm playing through the Police Quest series now, but I've finished all of the LucasArts classics. First two Monkey Island games. Day of the Tentacle is the best designed adventure game of all time. I will die on that grave or hill. Sorry, I'll probably be in the grave by the time the hill comes around. Anyway, Day of the Tentacle, absolutely fantastic. Sam and
That's
Max,
a
one of
good
the
one.
funniest games ever made. Full throttle, kick-ass fucking game. The Dig can go fuck itself. I don't like the Dig. Grim Fandango, great story, terrible game. But other than that, the LucasArts games are fantastic. Fate of Atlantis is one of the. I'm still so fucking impressed with that game. The three paths, multiple solutions, all that shit. It's just that was mind blowing at the time. So yeah, I love the LucasArts games. Absolutely.
Don't forget about the maze on Mars in Zack McCracken, where nobody knows if there is a method to find the exit, or if it's really totally
Well, I will
random.
say I've never finished Zack McCracken, and I only finished Maniac Mansion. No,
You
no, no, no,
never
no, no.
finished it. That's a
Well,
sin,
is it
man.
really?
That's a sin.
Is it really? Because I
It
specifically
is.
said
It is.
LucasArts games and not Lucasfilm games. Although I have played Loom, for instance, which is one of the most gorgeous games of all times. Um,
Which I didn't finish
that
though.
should take you like a lunch break. It is. It's a game
Yeah.
that's meant to be played and enjoyed and finished. It's not. It's not hardcore adventure gaming. The only thing you need is a pen and paper because all
Okay.
the different magic spells you accumulate along the way, they randomize every game.
Right.
Uh, we
But but I'm very happy that I got the very rare original talkie version on CD-ROM, um, with my last salary when I lost my first job in 2010, and I figured out like 13 years later that the same edition I got for 50 bucks, 50 euros, now costs around 500 euros. I'm like, wow,
oh
that
yeah.
was a good deal. I was like, wow,
But you haven't played
like
it?
holy. I never finished
Well,
it. No.
the big box market has completely lost its mind right now. I'm lucky I got the big boxes that I want. Like I don't collect big boxes. I just collect big boxes that are special to me. So I've got all those, and if I go
Right.
out on
Right.
eBay now and try to look up any of the boxes I have, they're like fucking astronomical. It's interesting you say the CD version
I
of Loom
know.
though,
Yeah.
because the CD version of Loom,
The
the
talkie
CD
CD
talkie
talkie
version
version.
is butchered. It is because Loom on CD doesn't use it doesn't read WAV files off the disc. It doesn't have the full script on it. They were limited to like 60 minutes of audio because it uses Redbook audio, so they had to really butcher the script in order to get it to fit on the CD. So if you play the CD version, you're playing the
I
truncated
know.
version of it.
I know. I know. I know. I'm
But
aware.
anyway, we did a funny live stream of Loom.
Which is
Sorry.
perhaps which is perhaps the reason why it's considered rare, because it didn't sell well.
Could
That's
be,
just my
could
guess.
be. Well, we did a really good live stream where we got a bunch of people together on the same live stream, and we played Loom, and we all did like sort of a voiceover. We played the original. We played the FM Towns version actually, which is the DOS original, but in 256 colors,
Ooh.
under the mistaken assumption that it was designer Brian Moriarty's favorite version. Turns out it wasn't, and he was there to tell us in person that it wasn't, which was great fun. But yeah, so we did like a live acting / mystery science theater rendition of Loom with Brian Moriarty present. So we were like making fun of his game while he was there. It was great.
Oh, awesome,
That's great.
awesome, yeah. I mean, we also spoke to Ron Gilbert and David Fox, and they both admitted that Maniac Mansion and Zack McCracken actually sold the best in the German version.
Yeah.
so so wow. And it's amazing. However, there's one question I had, because I asked that question in the comment section of one of your YouTube videos, which
Oh,
you
shit.
never replied to. So now I want to take the chance to ask you about it. I think it was one of your pretty recent videos. It was about 11th hour, right? And you said that the Steam version is actually pretty bad because it's based on the Windows release that doesn't allow switching off interlaced for the FMVs, but the DOS version does. So, and I asked you two questions because I wonder. Question number one: is the DOS version also packaged
No.
in the Steam release? Because if it was, you could use ScumVM to play that. So the answer
Yeah,
is it's
but
not.
that's technically a half yes, half no, because ScumVM doesn't care about the executable; it just cares about the game files. So you can buy the game legally on Steam, shove it in ScumVM, and you'll get the full pleasure of non-interlaced video and all that sort of stuff. Oh yeah,
Really?
ScumVM is
Wow.
fucking
So
magical.
I wonder-
I've been chatting with the dude who did the conversion of 7th Guest and 11th Hour for ScumVM. He's fixed all sorts of shit with 11th Hour, but yeah, ScumVM doesn't give a shit about the executable. It just looks for the game files and that's it.
Yeah, which we know because one of our last guests was actually the maintainer of.
Oh, I
ScumVM.
love the ScumVM guys.
So perhaps you want to check it out after this
absolutely.
interview. Of course, we actually went into details how they got sued from Disney, and then they took it back and actually started using ScumVM for their Steam and GOG releases.
Yeah.
And stuff. So perhaps you want to check that out.
There's some similar stories about how I think was it Nintendo who got caught using a ROM hack for one of their physical releases.
Yep.
The oof meter.
Yeah, it was Nintendo.
Well, didn't they use like the cracked versions of the games in the
That's right.
NES Mini?
They used to fan crack. Yeah.
That's true.
Fucking dipshits.
Right. A second question would be coming up towards that. Is that also the case for 7th hour? Sorry, 7th guest. 11th hour. And 7th
well,
guest.
first of all, I forgot to preface. Sorry for not answering your questions. I usually try to keep pretty well abreast of comments. Check my phone and all that.
No problem.
But yes, same story with the 7th guest. If you've got the game files, you can shove it in ScumVM. All should be fine.
So you actually missed to mention that in the video, because that means you can buy the Steam version if you don't use the Steam executable, but instead use ScumVM.
I suppose I could have made it clearer. Yes, I did say at one point in that video, you can just run these games in ScumVM and everything will be fine. I didn't detail that you could do. The point I was trying to make in the video was that if you buy 11th Hour on GOG and just double click the icon and expect it to work, you get the shitty Windows version. What you want to do is go out and find an ISO or buy the... Actually, don't buy the original off of eBay because it's going to cost a fortune, but get an ISO of the original, install that in DOSBox, you get a plethora of options. Or just run it in ScumVM.
That's quite nice. So actually, the easiest and the most legal is buy it off GOG or Steam, and use ScumVM. Then you just don't have interlaced
That's right.
FVMs.
That's right.
Quite interesting. Good. We figured that out, and you heard it first.
Probably
in
not.
this
I'm
podcast.
pretty sure the dude. I'm pretty sure the dude who did the conversions. He has his own Seventh Guest Discord server. He's active on Mastodon and all that. I'm pretty sure he's mentioned it.
Right.
But yeah.
yeah. It's yeah. I mean, it's interesting because that is also when I got the Larry Laffer collection. I was like, holy crap! The 7th installment crashes after 10 seconds on my Windows 11 installation, and I was like, just use
Oh, yeah.
ScumVM. Why going through the headache of troubleshooting?
Larry 7 has a DOS version.
Uh,
You can run that thing in DOS.
No.
Well, if you want to get technical,
Yeah, if you really, really want to.
I mean, there is what I term the dark ages of computer gaming, which is like end of the '90s, start of the 2000s, maybe even like mid '90s actually. When Windows 95 came out, DirectX became a thing. We have an abundance of games that are nearly impossible to get running on modern machines because we don't have the advantage of emulators like DOSBox, like ScumVM to play these games in. And there's this stuff like there's an adventure game by Take-Two called Black Dahlia, which is nearly impossible to get running unless you use a virtual machine. Stuff like Frankenstein Through the Eyes of the Monster, all this, even though I don't know why you'd want to play that, but the fact is you really can't. There's the whole like QuickTime era of FMVs, early Windows shit.
Oh,
it's
QuickTime is
horrible.
horrible. QuickTime is
Oh,
horrible. Yeah, it only works in this version, but it can't register because of Windows and how the registry works. And if you get it working, then no other game that requires QuickTime works because you can't uninstall it properly again.
The X-Files,
brilliant.
the X-Files
brilliant.
game that came out on 7 CDs was a Windows game that used QuickTime.
Yeah.
It barely worked when it came out. I remember having to fight with that thing a lot on my 486. But modern...
I know.
Performance
is horrible.
Apparently during
Performance is
FMVs, you're supposed to click these little 3 icons at the bottom that sort of... inject your mood into instead of dialogue options. They've just got your mood. Are you suspicious? Are you amiable? Are you all that sort of stuff? Those icons were completely missing, and I was playing on original hardware. I have no idea how the fuck they managed to fuck that up. Again, that thing is really hard to get running as well. So that's like the dark ages of computer game stuff that was developed for early Windows platforms.
But for those you can get pre-configured DOS boxes with Windows 3.1 and Windows 95 installed, and the CD-ROM ISOs mounted already works
Yeah, there
perfectly
are
fine.
some abandonware sites that do a really good job of that, and some of those games mercifully came out on both like DOS and Windows, like Lisa Suit Larry 7.
Right.
But yeah, there are just some games that are completely impossible to run, and it's a real shame, with the possible exception of King's Quest Mask of Eternity, which should be buried and forgotten for eternity. But other than that,
that was the after King's Quest 7, right?
Yeah, the
eighth
one.
Installment. The 3D one.
Complete dog shit. But again, I did a video on it, and of course I blasted it to shit because I don't like King's Quest to begin with, and King's Quest 8 is just such a fucking slog because they tried to like attack these hopeless RPG elements onto the game that doesn't do shit. The combat is terrible, and 3D is absolute dog shit. But the game came out sideways. Like the development story is such a head fuck of everything that could go wrong went wrong. So the fact that there even is a game is sort of impressive in and of itself. But yeah, it's still terrible.
But I mean, we are speaking about adventure games, and we are lucky that this dark ages is not as horrible as what you still get nowadays. For example, EA made 2 games in the Need for Speed installment that are racing simulation games: Shift and Shift 2. Those two only games that are not arcade racer, but actually on round tracks racing simulation, right? You can still buy it on now. Back then it was called Origin. Nowadays it's just called EA Desktop Application, and you can buy still licenses from their store, online store. You get the license. You have it in your library, right? And when you hit start, Shift 2 is actually trying to reach an activation server that is no longer running.
Oh, that whole
On the top, on the top of the license you already have in your launcher application. So you bought the license like 5 minutes ago, and they didn't fix the game. They are still selling. So you have to buy an activation crack to manually make up to manually put the serial key from your EA desktop application into your Windows registry so it doesn't try to reach the server on the internet. I'm like, holy crap, EA, you are still selling the game and you don't fix
they
your
don't give
own
a
game
fuck.
before you put it on
They don't give
your
a fuck.
storefront.
And I'll top that and on a very serious note, recommend YouTuber Ross Scott, who does a fantastic sort of grassroots movement on this thing. The whole games as a service thing with games that are like completed games, finished games that have been out for years and years, and then they suddenly get pulled from digital stores and you can never play them again. It's an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like the crew. He
Crew.
did a video
Like
specifically
The Crew.
on the crew, and he's absolutely fantastic. He's got a whole crusade going against this whole games as a service thing, which I understand perfectly because one of my good friends works as a digital conservationist for the Danish Royal Library. I don't know why I put the emphasis on Royal Library like that. Again, second language, Danish Royal Library. Anyway, digital conservationist. His job is to catalog every computer game that was ever released that had a Danish developer in it. So pretty full-on job. It's Danish law, by the way. If you release a piece of digital media of any kind, you are required to submit 2 copies to the Royal Danish Library. That's just a law requirement.
Really?
So like with books.
With books,
like with books,
movies,
similar.
TV shows, and computer games. And he's in charge of tracking down all the games that were released prior to this becoming law, so to speak. So he tracks down all that shit.
Wow.
So he's a digital conservationist. Alan Christofferson is his name. And he's a great person. I went to visit him at the Royal Danish Library, did a tour of the place, and he showed me some really fucked up shit that Danish people have put out over the years. But yeah, fun times. But yeah, it's a fucking nightmare for him as well because all this games as a service shit. First of all, you can't get a physical. You're required to submit 2 physical copies. You can't get a physical copy of some games as an online service shit. And second of all, you can't conserve it either. Because once the servers go down and they refuse to authenticate and all that, that shit is gone forever. And that's like hundreds of hours of man time put in by developers, really talented developers, just to see their hard work go down the toilet. It's a fucking disgrace. Sorry, that's my soapbox moment for the day.
But on the positive side, in summer, there will be a community-based server for the crew. So the game will be fully playable again.
That's one success story in a sea of absolute failures on the part of developers. And it's probably because of Ross Scott and his little crusade, because he did that video on the crew. Probably has something to do. Well, I won't put the entire success story on him, but I think he raised a lot of awareness about it.
Right.
Luckily, we have, for Sierra gamers and LucasArts gamers, we have people like the ScumVM people, and we have the publishers, for some reason, still selling the games, because they still make a buck or two on it. So at least we still have those. The copy protection is, oh god, that's a funny story. So, if you'll indulge me quickly, the Space Quest collection, Sierra did a number of collection on CD-ROM and such, like in the 90s, and that's basically what you get if you buy it on a digital storefront today. It's just a dump of the ISO of those collection CDs. Now, fun fact: one of the later collection they released physically on CD-ROM, they forgot to include all the copy protection information. They forgot to include all the manuals and shit. So and all 6 games, no, with the exception of 1 and 2 and 3. Anyway, the games had copy protection, so you couldn't play like half of the games. And they actually had to post the copy protection information on their website. Bear in mind, this is like late 90s, and they're technically still selling this shit. So for them to just put anti-piracy stuff on the internet is just that was amazing.
Wow. Oh. I also liked how back in the 80s they used dark red or brown paper and black print because it wouldn't work
Yes.
for copiers. And nowadays, with the modern technology, it's like, well, how is that supposed to protect yourself from copying? Like, today it's a non-issue.
Do you want to know
really,
a fucked up
you
thing?
know?
Talking about the old Commodore 64 age, we had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. You know, the first one. That's also for the NES. Quite infamously, hard.
Horrible.
I sunk a lot of hours into that. Anyway, we had it for the Commodore 64. We had an original box copy of it. I think it came with the Commodore 64 or something. Or my brother and I talked our dad into buying it because, yay, Ninja Turtles. But we somehow lost the manual or we lost the game, and we got a copy of it.
Ooh, so you can't play it anymore because it used one of those.
They did indeed use one of those
codes.
copy codes. It was like a spread, and I got the manual from a friend of mine and sat there and laboriously wrote down each and every fucking code, so I could play the game again. Copied the entire table.
I also have one of those
Oh, yeah.
copies, by the way, from a friend who also copied manually into his word processing tool at the time.
I wrote them down
single
by
code.
hand, which was even worse.
Ooh,
But yeah,
verse.
so we
Wow.
sunk some, and also the old Sierra hint books used a sort of similar trick, where you had to have this sort of red translucent piece of plastic that you would hold over the scrambled thing, and
Oh,
it would
yes.
reveal the answer, which was an absolute improvement over the way they used to do it, which was, in the early AGI games, Space Quest 1 and 2 hint books, they had this disappearing ink thing, and you had this yellow marker that you had to drag across to reveal the answer. Now, the trouble with that is, over the many, many decades since those hint books came out, the ink has completely dried up. You can see the yellow marks, but you can't read the actual text anymore. So whatever was in those hint books is lost media now. We have no idea what it says. I have the hint books. They're illegible. There's nothing to read except for the questions. Yeah.
Ooh. And there's no way to neutralize.
Not as far as I know. The ink
those-
is gone. It dried up.
And you can't replace the ink with.
I don't know. I'm not a
something else?
chemist. So I don't know if that's technically possible. Maybe it is. I have no idea. If it is beyond my capabilities.
I mean, they didn't use magic.
No, but they did.
back then,
I think they
Who
did call it a
knows?
magic pen, but I don't think it actually did magic.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. I mean, there must be an easy way to replicate.
Perhaps there is.
that.
Maybe there is. We haven't. I mean, I haven't looked into it. I just find it funny that sorry, knocked my desk. I knocked it for a second time. Cool. There's like the hint books are. the hint books are completely illegible. There was a William Gibson book, which was purposely written in this sort of disappearing ink. Maybe not the same kind, but the whole point was the story was about the fallibility of memory and shit. And once you opened it and exposed the ink to like oxygen and shit, some words and then paragraphs and then whole pages like gradually would start to fade away. The story would change, depending on what faded away and such. Really interesting. And eventually the entire book was just completely blank pages. Fun guy.
Wow.
I forget what
Yeah.
it's called, obviously, but you can look it up.
Never mind.
William Gibson,
Never mind.
disappearing novel.
One thing that I also found pretty funny is your series where you play Sierra games with very, very limited color schemes.
Pain Train.
You know, like exactly. I think it was like black and white, or I think you also did an an ECA version or something. Like
The preferred color
so
palette of the Pain Train is the standard CGA 4-color template. You got black, white, you got screaming cyan, and this puke-colored magenta, which is the sort of shit I grew up with when my dad got the first 386, and we played stuff like Alley Cat and Captain Comic and all this sort of shit, which only had Captain Comic was 16 colors, but Command and Keen, the first Command and Keen, you could run in CGA, and I loved like tinkering with this. I had like deluxe paint too on this 386, and I used to sit there and fuck around with limited 4-color palettes. So this color palette was my childhood. So being able to subject my favorite games to this nostalgic shittiness is just fun, and it spawned like a whole sub community of the SQH Discord, at my little hangout on Discord, where they literally they call themselves the digital sadism crowd. The whole purpose is to just break shit, and it just make one guy. Quite famously, I think James Howard went on to make a CGA driver for Wolfenstein 3D that is out there. You can download and play that. And one of the other guys, Pickle Dog on my Discord, did a CGA driver for Doom, which was then actually integrated into Fast Doom. So when you download Fast Doom now, you get his CGA driver for Doom. So yeah, the digital sadism stretches far.
by the way, it's actually the CGA remembers actually not the proper color palette.
Huh?
Because there is a CGA, when you use a different cable, you actually get a wider.
Yes, you're talking
color
about
palette.
composite.
And very
composite
little people
CGA
know that.
And that's
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
what, if you run CGA games and stuff like DOSBox, you configure DOSBox to a CGA machine. That's what it'll try to display. It'll try to display composite CGA, which is still a limited color palette that relies on the wobbling of CRT monitors. You put two colors very close together, and the monitor, the picture tube wobbles enough that the two colors sort of blend together to form a new color, and that's what composite CGA does. Some games support it, some games don't. Some games just stick with. There were like two major CGA palettes. There's I call it the brown vomit. I think it's red and yellow, or just brown and red, or something like really hideous. And then there's the lovely cyan magenta palette. And games like Space Quest 1 and 2 can take advantage of composite CGA. They can also run in your box standard 4-color CGA. Yeah, composite CGA was a technological wonder at the time, but holy shit, does it make your head wobble if you look at it too much.
Yeah.
Kind of like interlaced video in FMV games. Fuck that noise.
Right. Or iFly on the Commodore 64, where you can get up to 64 colors out of the 16 color palette of the Commodore 64.
You know, stuff like Commodore 64 demos and that whole thing. I used to, because you pirate games when you're a kid for the Commodore 64, you get crack tros and you get demos and shit like that. I had no idea what this shit was, but it just looked really amazing. I was always super fascinated when they could sort of, I called it border break. I don't know what the actual term for it is, but when you go beyond that blue border that's around the actual thing, when they could get little horizontal lines going through that border, I was like, how the fuck do they do that?
Yeah, it actually is called open border.
Close. Border break, open border. I was the word border's in there. And stuff like we're talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. You had those little notches on the discs to write protect the discs and such. And they did some sort of fuckery with the discs, so they didn't have the notches at all. You couldn't write to the discs, but it looked like you should be able to. All this sort of stuff. You know, my dad used to use like hole
Yeah.
punches on single-sided discs and go, it's now a double-sided disc.
I still do it. I still do it
There you
nowadays.
go.
Yeah, still do it
The actual
nowadays.
disc punch
Yeah,
things.
I was
yeah,
like,
yeah. I got like 4 of those different
yeah, I loved
kinds.
it. And well, we had a fast loader cartridge as well, which sometimes worked and sometimes didn't. It's all good
Yeah.
shit.
That's the thing. Um, I also remember one story that I found quite interesting is when you met all the other indie adventure game developers. I think it was Julia Minamata and Francisco Gonzalez
Yeah.
and stuff, right? That was also
I've met
quite fun.
those a bunch of times. Francisco, I mean, Julia is great. I've met her a couple of times. We're not like buddies or anything, but we 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 get along. Francisco and I have been friends for a long ass time because he used to do a podcast called the Blue Cup Tools podcast with Ben Chandler, who's Ben Chandler's the art guy at Wagon Eye Games. Did the art for like Unavowed, the Blackwell Games, Old Skies, which is coming out soon, and all that. And him and Francisco used to have a podcast, and I was listening to that podcast, and I'm going like, these guys are so awesome, and I wish I could be friends with them and talk to them and all that sort of shit, and sent them 1 or 2 emails for questions they could put on the podcast, and I was like a little kid when they mentioned my name on the podcast and all that, and eventually Francisco and I start talking, and he was like, oh dude, I knew you from the old Space Quest days. I used to read your FAQ all the time. I was like, oh, so we've been friends, and he's actually bench lifted me over his head at an Adventure X, so we're pretty good buddies at this point.
So I bet you also played Rosewater.
No, I did not.
Through
No,
already,
actually,
right?
I have not. I did.
Was
Yes, it was,
released 2
and
days ago.
and his publisher sent me a key for it and everything. So I'm
still waiting for mine.
Yeah, I actually don't know if I actually got the key or not. I submitted one. I know the dude at Application Systems Heidelberg, Volker. It sounds like vulgar. Sorry, Volker. Let's do it right. Volker. Yes.
Volker, yeah. 50 minutes
Oh,
away
cool.
from
Yeah,
me,
he's
right?
a great guy. So he keeps me on the Application Systems mailing list whenever they have a new game. I just like, do you want a key for this? Do you want a key for that?
Nice.
And so I was on the list. I think I got a key for Rosewater.
I mean, it's just Monday. It's still might.
Oh yeah, but
still might be
the thing about Rosewater and the thing about Old Skies, David Gilbert's new game is coming out and all that sort of stuff. People are coming out with so many cool looking adventure games. I don't have the time. I'm still stuck in my ways. I'm playing through Police Quest games. I'm doing a Tex Murphy retrospective. I'm doing all this sort of shit.
Ooh.
That's why you are not called the completionist.
No, that's. I mean, I do feel bad, especially for friends who are coming out with games like Francisco and like Dave and Julia was. I think I was one of the first, if not the first, to interview her on camera, and she was like super nervous about it, and then she started streaming on her own. So I don't know, not that I take credit for it or anything, but it was kind of cool to interview her back before she got comfortable on camera and stuff like that. And so they're all there's some great things coming out, and I wish I had time to play all of them, but I'm stuck playing the things that, because I'm very sort of tunnel vision driven. If there's something I don't, there's something I want to do, and it has to be right now, and then everything else will just sort of have to wait, and then I just never sort of get around to everything that's around me. That sucks. But I have started playing adventure games like in the living room on the Switch. See, another reason why I don't think I have the time is because I have a 5-year-old son and I have a family life and all that. So once the kid is home, I'm family dad. At least I pretend to be. So I don't want to fuck off to my own room and sit there and play games and like, yeah, you just mind your own business, son. Daddy's working, kind of thing. I don't want to be like that. So I have my limited time.
So I'm glad that you took the time.
Well, it's after 8 p.m. and the kid fell. Actually, the reason why I was slightly late was I had to give myself a shave, and I just took the kid for a stroller just to help him fall asleep. So I just came back 5 minutes before it was go time. So I was like, gotta get this is quick.
At least 1 of 3.
Yeah.
Shaved.
It's 1080p, man. You got to do it.
Yeah.
Quite interesting.
Yeah.
I mean,
You're told
it's
me he's like, oh, he's got to shave. I'm like, should we?
It's just a self-conscious thing. Like
yeah.
if I used to have a beard. I grow a really weird beard. Like there's facial hair on this side, and there's like a big round patch of nothing on this side. So it kind of looks like I've got a beard, but I fell into a wood chipper on one side of my face, and it just looks fucked up. So
And at full moon it twitches.
yeah, it turns bright red and starts poking out like little porcupine spikes.
Yeah.
And then John Landis finds me and casts me in a movie. That's a Werewolf in London reference.
There you go. Yeah.
Quite interesting that you mentioned
You
Julia
mentioned.
Minamata
Oh,
being
oh,
shy
sorry.
about
I thought you
it.
mentioned-
You mentioned that Julia Minamata was shy at first talking about her new adventure game. When I interviewed her, I spoke to her like 4 hours, and I had to cut out like 2 hours of the interview because she was getting too personal about how she is staying afloat and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not sure you want to have that in an interview. And then I ended up having her phone number for
Oh,
WhatsApp.
well,
Like,
I
ooh.
don't know if I should say she was I mean, she was. I I remember we did the interview. This was back when Crimson Diamond's demo had just come out, and I took a look at it and I went, "This EJ graphics, it looks fantastic." I can't remember if she got in touch with me first or I got in touch with her, but I was like, "Can I interview you about this?" Yeah, sure. Actually, do you want to do a let's play on it? And she was like, I don't know. I'm not really. I've never done a video interview before. And I was like, "Oh, come on, it'll be fine." So I'm not sure if it was just the fact that she wasn't on that she had to be on camera, or if it was because of me. That could be it as well. She might have been perfectly comfortable with everyone else,
a bit too
but
much. Ooh. I mean, my interview with her was last year, and as I said, it went a bit too deep into details. That I was like, okay, we can't keep that all that in. It's not beneficial for yourself.
no, but she's really she's a really nice person. We've hung out a couple of times. I say hung out. Like met in passing, shook hands, said nice things to each other on a number of occasions. Adventure X, and there was Adventure Game Fanfare in Tacoma last year. She was there as well. Everyone got COVID. It was fun. Yeah, so it was just, which was fucked up because she was wearing a mask the entire time. She was one of the few people who like was wearing a mask the entire time. And somehow she still got COVID. I'm not sure how. Anyway, that was fucking.
I mean, it minimizes your risks, but it doesn't mean the risk turns into zero.
That's true. But I will say it was worth it. Everyone had their shots, so no one got like seriously ill or anything. And it was just such a good time hanging out with not just indie developers, friends, and people in the network I'm in and all that sort of stuff. People meeting for the first time. Old friends. Francisco was there, gave me a hug. But yeah, also a lot of Sierra Online alumni were there. So not only do you have like Jane Jensen, Mark Crow, and Al Lowe was there, and a bunch of people. Also, Ken and Roberta Williams themselves were there, signing stuff and all that. So we got to talk to them. So yeah, that whole Tacoma thing, I'll take COVID if I get to do that.
Perhaps you can answer me that. How about the last game from the two guys from Andromeda? I saw you got a Kickstarter copy, right? But all the info I found is it's very unsure if they ever release a final commercial release.
Actually, there was Chris Pope, the programmer / producer / whatever dude on the project, the Kickstarter manager or whatever, just did an interview, a rare interview with Adventure Game Hotspot, where there is a release date. It's going to go up in early access. It should actually be up in early access by April 1st. And there was. No, no,
April Fools. Woohoo.
and it is meant as sort of like if we're gonna release it, we're gonna release it on April Fool's Day and just weird everyone out. But it is done. We got a Kickstarter backer early release copy about a year ago, which was great, but was sort of not ready for prime time. Still a few too many bugs, and it was running on a very old version of Unity. So what they did was they spent a year porting it into a new version of Unity, which broke the entire game, and they spent a year fixing it, and then they. Oh yeah,
Holy
and then they
fuck,
rolled out.
okay.
Once they were done with that, they rolled out beta testing first, like insider alpha testing, and then onwards to Kickstarter backers who had pledged to be beta testers. I was on the alpha team with a bunch of other like close knit Space Quest trusted people they knew wouldn't like spill the secrets or anything. So we got to play the game in its early finished form, and it was pretty solid at that point. I will say, like we only found what I think was like a few bugs and a few mishaps, and then they went into another round of QA with a larger pool of people, and they found some more stuff. So it is finished finally. It's like 13 years or so down the line. So yeah, it will come out, and I never had any. I say that as a Space Quest fan. Obviously, I never doubted them. I had full confidence in them. No, I honestly did. Even when everyone else seemed to not have any confidence that it would ever get finished, I knew it would. I also knew it was going to take a hell of a long time, but that's what that is.
How do you think? Do you think it's a scorched earth, and it will be with pretty bad sale figures? Because all the reviews I saw based on the Kickstarter early alpha were destroying.
Well, if you're looking at the Kickstarter comments, then yes, because that place was.
Well, also some reviews by some reputable serious game review sites that were actually based on the Kickstarter release. But if you say that the Kickstarter release itself was so bugged that it is not the game's fault that it is so horrible.
Horrible or not, here's the thing: the technical side of Space Venture has been an uphill battle, and I'm not talking like a 45-degree angle. I'm talking like a steep incline. So
okay,
the game was terribly broken on the technical side. You could see how it was supposed to work, and for the most part, it just it wasn't quite there. But in terms of story, graphics, set design, just general mood of it, puzzles, set pieces, and all of that, it is an absolutely solid, stellar game. And now that they've got the technical shit worked out, porting the game to a new version of Unity, did all the Q&A stuff, and which they didn't for the backer release. They just tested it themselves and then threw it out there, which admittedly was a bit of a mistake on their part, because people broke it within the first 5 minutes. Now they've actually done QA on it, so and also it's going up in early access instead of a full release, so they can still spit and polish it, and still.
That means Steam.
And they're also going to do a DRM free thing for GOG and stuff, but I would imagine GOG would prefer a non-early access version. And I don't know how long it's going to take to get from early access to full-blown full release, but at least it's coming out. And honestly, I couldn't give a shit about the reviews anyway. I'm just over the moon that this thing exists, and that and I think it's as good as it is. And what anyone else thinks, I don't fucking care.
So it means I don't have to ask you for a backup copy in the end. I can buy it legally myself. That's good to know. Interesting that you mentioned GOG. I mean, there is this game from a few years ago, I think like 5 years ago, 4 years ago, Unusual Findings from Lamasoft from Argentina.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it was something like that. I don't remember the publisher name exactly, but I think it was similar to that.
Epic Llama Games.
Epic Llama Games. This is similar to that. Yeah, exactly.
Well, because Llamasoft, that's Jeff Minter.
Right. Yeah,
So-
yeah. Well, as I said similar. I said that's
And
why
it
I
was
said similar.
published by
I did
ES Digital and Buka.
I thought Llamasoft were the
Right,
guys that did
right.
Winamp.
And
Maybe that's just my age showing.
Oh,
no, that's Nullsoft.
Oh, that's Nullsoft.
That's
That's right, but it
Nullsoft.
whips the
That's
llama's
Nullsoft.
ass. That's right.
That's Nullsoft.
yeah,
It
yeah,
whips
yeah.
the llama's ass. Exactly.
Well, the developer was the Llama Group. They developed it.
See. That's it. Anyway, wanted to say it's interesting um, when they were asked in the Steam forums why they don't make a GOG release. The developer said that Unusual Findings was denied by CD Projekt Red for a GOG release.
Why
So
would that
there
be?
seems to be situations where they can say no,
They
we
can
don't
very
want your
easily
game.
say no. I've heard that from a lot of indie developer friends who have to jump through a bunch of hoops to get their game on Steam. In fact, the guys who did the game that I'm wearing the shirt for.
I mean,
Oh,
GOG,
sorry.
not Steam.
I meant
I'm
GOG.
but
The guys who made this Give Us a Cthulhu Adventure they had their game rejected by Steam. GOG. It's late. They had their game rejected by GOG like a million times before they eventually got it on there, because GOG not only requires you to jump through a certain number of hoops, they also require you to have like special extras that you don't get on Steam versions. You've got to have your like wallpapers and stickers and I don't know, art books and shit. So you get extra stuff from buying it on GOG and not from Steam. They kind of require you to have those things as well.
wow.
That's
Really?
what I was told anyway.
Ooh.
So that's why when you go and buy a game on GOG, you have all these lists of different shit you can get. Like if you buy the Seventh Guest on GOG, you get the novelization in there as well, which you got with the 20th anniversary special edition or whatever as well. But yeah, you have to have extras in there.
Interesting, because the general perception is Valve, evil, CD Projekt Red, good.
Well, yeah. What can I tell you? I haven't published an indie game myself, so I wouldn't know. But yeah, you got to jump through a few more hoops because Steam will let pretty much any shit on their platform, and GOG is sort of the opposite. They're kind of like, yeah.
Okay, interesting to know. Huh? Good
Well,
that
I don't
asked
work
you
for
about
GOG. I don't know if
Um,
it's actually true. I'm just a messenger.
You will get hate messages from Poland after this one.
Poland.
Yeah, there are.
Oh yeah,
cities in
yeah.
Poland.
GOG,
Really?
CG Project
Yes.
is Polish.
Yeah,
I don't know. I didn't know that.
They also develop games. Did you know that?
which is
Okay.
Yes, that I knew. Yes.
probably why they spell it with the K.
Maybe. Maybe they're just bad at spelling. I mean, the Mortal Kombat guys couldn't figure out how to...
Polish people. Polish people can't spell.
Well, neither
English
can the Americans. I mean, Mortal Kombat with a K, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know?
The Tarantino
Anyway,
movie, Inglourious Bastards. I mean, that movie that didn't go through spell check.
Yeah.
or for the NS, Double Dragon, Jimmy and Bimmy.
Jimmy and Bimmy.
Congratulations! Oh, that's Ghostbusters, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jimmy and Bimmy. An old classic.
I mean, there's
Yeah. There was some
Sorry,
game.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say there was some game that takes like I think it's a baseball game, but it just takes kind of like random names and like mushes parts of it together to try to like make what would sound like an
Oh, yeah,
American name
yeah.
would be. and it's awful. I can't think of what it is. There's a lot of hockey names. A lot of the last names are like
Oh
of
yeah,
hockey players.
yeah. I remember seeing a
And, yeah,
review
I
of that
can't.
game.
Yeah,
It was a Japanese developed. Was it American football or a
yeah.
hockey game? I can't remember. What I was going to say was there's one of the late Space Quest collection versions that came out after Sierra was sort of gutted. It got sold off to a bunch of companies, and then it got gutted and turned into Activision Blizzard and all that. One of the late Space Quest collections came out, and the cover, it's like a flap cover that has a little description of each of the games, and the main antagonist for Space Quest 2 and 4, Sludge Vohal, is consistently misspelled. Like, it's like, how did you not catch this? It's not like once, it's like 3 or 4 times, like Vohal is up. But yeah, but you put a U in his name. There's no U in his name. Well, there is, but there's no second U.
Yeah,
Still better than
Yeah,
Jimmy
well,
and
Jimmy
Bimmy.
and Bimmy, yeah.
yeah. The game was Fighting
Oh, yeah.
Baseball. That's the one.
Fighting
Yeah.
baseball. Never
Yeah,
heard.
it's some Bobson Dugnut.
What system was that on?
NES.
Of course the
NES.
NES.
Yeah.
Never
I
heard.
mean-
Never heard.
I mean, at least NES games
Yeah.
had windscreens. I don't
I mean-
recall C64 games having much of a windscreen.
I mean,
Yeah, no.
one of my latest purchases on the NES, I had horrible nightmares about it. I mean, one of the latest games and one of the rarest games actually is DuckTales 2 on the NES. Was released in '93, right? So towards the end of the NES. And what I didn't know is that when I bought it from France, because I found a cheap copy in eBay in France, and I can't play it because it's one of the very few games on the NES that was localized, and I don't speak French, and the game starts with answering tons of questions that I can't read, so I can't even start playing the game because I can't get to the first level. And like, holy shit, what a disaster! And the French seller must have been thinking like, what an idiot. And he included a post it saying thank you for your purchase, and was like, holy shit, what a mistake.
I have a similar thing because Maniac Mansion was on the NES, and it was for some reason some games got localized in Scandinavia, but they all got localized in Swedish. So Maniac Mansion was localized in Swedish, and I think they were under the assumption that all Scandinavian languages are pretty much the same, and they are to a certain extent. But if you're 8 years old and you pop in a cartridge of an adventure game and it starts speaking Swedish at you, like all the text is in Swedish, I don't know what the fuck. So I really wanted to play Maniac Mansion on the NES, but the only copy I could get in Denmark was in fucking Swedish. So that was a no-go. So we had that sort of shit as well.
Did you at least manage to kill the
Oh,
hamster in the microwave?
See, I the first time I played Maniac Mansion was the C64 version, the OG version, because the game was developed for C64.
Where you
Oh, you
still
can absolutely do it.
where
So you
you
can't do it in the NES version, and you can't have the statue with the boobies on it, and you can't have all this sort of shit. You can't have
Oh, but you can still do the hamster thing on the NES. They missed that.
Oh, they did.
They
Oh, yeah, because there's a really good article
that.
where one of the producers of the NES version just went through all the changes they had to do, like Nurse Etna saying, "I wish I could tie you to my bed" or something, or "I should have tied you to my bed" when she hauls you off to the dungeon. It's like, "Oh no, we can't do that." Oh, that's right. Okay, so you still can microwave the fucking hamster. Cool.
Yeah. We interviewed David Fox, and he told us personally that he especially put in the hamster thing because of Nintendo censoring it for the NES, and he wanted to put something in they would miss. And
Well, there you go. Well, but
so it was especially in it as a homage to Nintendo censorship team. and they totally missed it.
Fantastic. I mean, they even renamed some of the arcade machines in Dr. Fred's arcade room because what was it? I think I can't remember which one it was, but it was like, ooh, no, we can't say that. But yeah, I played it on the C64 first, but I was a little kid and I didn't really understand what was going on. And honestly, for most of my life, I never really got anywhere in Maniac Mansion because the whole thing just gave me anxiety. The whole thing about they might catch you at any moment, that kind of thing, always willies me the fuck out. But eventually, some years ago, me and two other friends, three other friends actually, sorry, got together and played through all of Maniac. None of us had finished Maniac Mansion. Of course, we'd all heard about it. We'd all played Day of the Tentacle. It's great fun. Maniac Mansion was included in Day of the Tentacle as sort of an Easter egg. If you use the computer in Weird Ed's room, it boots up Maniac Mansion.
Right.
But none of us had ever actually finished it. For the same reason, we get the willies out of people, coming out of doors and putting us in jail. And there's a lot of soft locks in that game. But we finally finished it. And of course, we played the PC version, but we played version 1, which has, the double pixel width and, the original UI. So it almost kind of looks like the C64 version. They had like an updated version that came out in like 320 by 200, like proper
The
square
enhanced
pixels and shit.
version, right?
Yeah,
Right.
but we played the OG version.
And here's also the interesting thing: since it's an NTSC release, and there are some moments where you actually can be caught if you're not moving fast enough away, for example, from the refrigerator in the kitchen when Edna is coming to get you. Um, on the European version, it's actually harder to move fast enough because
Yeah.
the system is slower, and it wasn't programmed. It wasn't programmed to move so slow. So on the European versions, it's including the NES or the C64 or Amiga version, doesn't matter. It's actually harder to not get caught on the European version
Yeah.
of the games. So you Americans had it easier all the
Of
time
course,
because
of
your
course.
machines ran faster. Of course, exception was the PC version because the PC
Yeah.
didn't really care. But when it comes to NAS and Amiga and
Anything that plugs
C64,
into TVs,
horrible.
essentially. And I did a whole video expose on why Sierra games are so terrible on the Amiga, because they're absolutely god awful.
Oh, I
And
remember
it
that. I
and
remember
and
that.
beyond
they
Yeah.
just
are.
the piss poor graphics conversions and terrible running and all of that, they also are also built for NTSC. Now I don't know if this is true, but I've been told that the Commodore Amiga and the C64 for that matter were very popular in Europe, perhaps not as popular in North America. So for them to build
I got this only a few years ago, and it's the first Amiga I've ever actually seen in person.
so for them to make NTSC only versions of their adventure games means that all the people who actually had Commodore Amigas and tried to run these games got the really, really slow version. If you look up like the intro to Space Quest 3 and you hear the mod version of the Space Quest 3 theme, which is pretty shit to begin with, but you hear the PAL version and it just runs at like half the BPM and it just makes it even worse. And I used to be a mod
Now-
tracker,
now-
so I know shitty mod music when I hear it.
Now the Amiga can flip. Like if you start the thing up with the mouse held down, you can decide whether you want to be an NTSC or PAL. Because this
But
thing
not
is in
all
PAL
models
right
of
now.
the Amiga. But
Um,
not all models of the Amiga.
You need the newer, I think Kickstart 2 or better. The original Kickstart
Yeah, which
1.2
not
and
all
1.3
Amigas
couldn't
have.
do it. But
Not
if you
which
went
not
up to
all
the
Amigas.
ECS,
I'm gonna have to
you could.
interject here. While I am a Commodore 64
Right.
kid, I never had an Amiga, and I still don't know how they work.
Me neither.
Whenever
Me neither.
whenever we have to capture
neither.
footage
Me neither.
for anything I have to do with the Amiga, I mean, I have FSUAE, the emulator, on my computer. I have, I think, every Kickstart ROM ever created. Sorry, Commodore, but it's getting anything to fucking run in that thing. It's just there's a again Pickle Dog on my Discord. He knows his Amiga shit, and he pretty much captures all the Amiga footage I need because I try for like 30 minutes. I'm like, fuck this noise.
It's a weird,
But there is hope.
weird machine because you could
But
upgrade it. Like, because mine's
yeah,
running a 68020. It's running way faster. No, I'm sorry, it's an 030. It's running way faster than it would normally run as an Amiga 500. It's got extra memory and stuff, but a lot of games will not work because I've upgraded stuff. So I got to unplug this whole mess from the side if I want to play some old games because they want the earlier kickstart and they want just that 6800 or 68,000. At 8
Oh, here's a
megahertz.
fucked up thing. If we want to get into games that completely shit the bed, for okay,
but before we do that, one intermission. There is actually hope because some Amiga versions of the Sierra games, especially King's Quest, I think it was King's Quest 5, I don't remember, were actually ported not by King's Quest themselves, but actually by Charles Cecil and
King's Quest
Revolution
6.
Software. Because it was King's Quest 6, okay. Because we spoke about the horrible Amiga conversions with Charles Cecil when we spoke to him about Broken Sword Reforged on the podcast.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
he and his crew did know how to make
Revolution.
it better than Sierras
Revolution knew
themselves.
what they were doing on the Amiga, and they and Sierra weren't even going to release King's Quest 6 on the Amiga because Space Quest 4, King's Quest 5, Police Quest 3, anything they put out on the Amiga was just shit. So they were like, fuck it, we're not doing King's Quest. King's Quest 6 is a big game. It's the flagpole. It's got all this tech and shit in it. It's never going to fit on the Amiga anyway. Fuck the Amiga. And then Revolution came in and was like, you know what? We can do it. And Sierra was like, yeah, okay, fine, you do it. What they didn't know at the time, I think, was that Revolution were just going to strip away everything SCI and just rebuild it in their own engine. But they did. But yeah, so if you want example of a game that absolutely shits at bed because of poor backwards compatibility, Space Quest 1 and 2 and probably every other AGI game Sierra ever put out for the Apple Macintosh. This was a big surprise to me because I was going to do this whole series about Space Quest on non-PC systems, which I think is like how most people played the games. So one of them was the Apple Macintosh version. The Apple Macintosh versions are really quite strange for a number of reasons, which I won't get into. But here's the thing. Apple Macintosh, if you try and run the games in Mac emulators, which is hard enough to do because the Mac emulator scene is full of people with very long beards and they don't know how to write documentation very well. If you try to run Space Quest 1 and 2, for instance, on a Mac emulator, it'll come up in black and white. And the reason for that is you go, okay, the Macintosh had 16 color capability. Yes, it did. But every Macintosh emulator uses 24-bit quick draw. That wasn't your phone, was it? No.
No, that was my
a
dog.
real dog.
Yeah.
But anyway, they use 24-bit quick draw, and every Sierra game looks for 16-bit quick draw. So if you try and force the games to run in 16 colors, all you get is pixel vomit. Now here's the thing: 16-bit quick draw only existed for like a brief blip of a second. Like even Apple it was out for like a month and then 24-bit quick draw came around, and Sierra just never thought to make their games compatible with 24-bit quick draw. So you get black and white or you can get fucked. Fun times.
Yep.
But in one video I saw, you said there was one emulator that
An experimental emulator that was a fork of VMAC, which I got to play with under threat of death if I shared that emulator with anyone, because it was a work in progress. And funnily enough, that emulator, the version I got, first of all, it had no sound. And second of all, it would only run on Macs. It wouldn't run on a PC, so I had to borrow my wife's work laptop, a Mac laptop, and capture the footage on that. So fun times. I don't know if ScumVM might support the color Macintosh versions. It might be a moot point at this point, but okay.
It does.
There you go. It was new and interesting when I did it. Probably not so much anymore.
Yeah, because I had those actual games for the older Macs, the 68K and the early PowerPC stuff. And when I switched over to the newer machines, I brought all those old games with me and threw them into Scum VM, and they all
Oh,
worked.
so instead of
I think one or two had a music problem, like they didn't play the audio right, but I think that was a Monkey Island thing, and I don't remember which one it was.
I've only ever tried getting the Space Quest games to run. So that means that you had original hardware that could play the games in 16 color. We should have just phoned
Yes.
you up and had you capture footage of this shit. Because there was like nobody had seen these games in the Macintosh version for 30 odd years. It was like we had this sort of yay moment, like we're the first people to see this in 30 fucking years, except for the strokey beard people.
Yeah. I mean, I hadn't seen it on actual hardware since in probably 20 years or 25
go.
years or so, but still. Yeah.
Anyway,
but I still have all the
the
software.
Mac versions are great. This sort of proto point and click thing that's completely and utterly useless because you're gonna play it with a keyboard anyway. Great fun.
Yeah.
You should check that out if you haven't seen that.
Oh, yeah.
Yark. If you haven't seen the Space Quest games on the Macintosh, it's a whole new world.
Well, isn't that the video that I mentioned?
Well, it's one of them, sure. Probably yes. So you have seen the fucked up UI and all that. Yeah. But I don't think I went in. I didn't go so far into the. It's been such a long time. Of course, you're right. Yeah, I did a video where here's what the Mac version looks like, and now you're gonna see some shit that hasn't been seen for 30. Yeah, it's the same video. Sorry.
Exactly, that's the one. That's the one. Yeah. You see,
Yeah,
I came
I
prepared.
didn't. Right.
Ooh, no problem. We didn't send you questions to prepare for, so
That's what
it's our fault.
I
never
interviewed
do
Ken and
that.
Roberta Williams at one point for when they started up Colossal Cave. For some reason, they agreed to come on my YouTube channel, and I got hammered the night before, and I did that whole interview like sort of almost like still drunk, and I was like, yeah, and I just sitting there swearing my head off at Ken Williams and Roberta Williams, and they apparently gave like one of those, okay, we can trust this dude, let's open our hearts up kind of interviews, and I didn't want to tell them I was just sort of a bit wobbly at the time.
Okay. So pretty much what happened to me and Julia Minamata. Yeah. Except I wasn't drunk because I don't drink, but never mind.
You're a high. I bath salts.
No. I just don't. No, not really. Well, I mean, it's I kind of had of the same thing. Sometimes your most famous interviews are actually those where you consider yourself having done the worst job as an interviewer, and people are still loving them. I'm like, oh right, okay. If you say you liked the interview, you liked it, but personally I hated it. Sometimes I have.
We've done a few of that. We did an interview with Tom Hall on our Backseat Designers podcast, and we were talking about Rise of the Triad, Commander Keen, and all of that. And we usually have when we're doing interviews, we have this separate chat going on. There's three of us during the interview, and we have our little private chat so we can like tell each other, okay, let's wrap this up, or this topic's going on too long and something. But during that Tom Hall interview, me and one of the other co-hosts, Fred, got super angry at each other. Not like just friendly poking around, tee hee ha ha laughing. We got like really angry at each other, to the point where it was framed as a joke, but during the actual recording, I booted him out of the call, making him reconnect and stuff like that. And he flipped his fucking lid, and we really tried to keep it together, like on the air, interviewing like fucking Tom Hall, like Commander Keen's dad and all that. And we were super excited to have him on, and we were just livid at the end, and we had to send like an apology email to Tom's, like, if you picked up on anything, we're just tremendously sorry. We're not really professionals to begin with, but that was just awful. And he sent back a message just going, I get it, sometimes your bro just needs to be put in his place. I think he's seen some shit, so he's used to it. We're good now, by the way. We're fine. It was patched up literally 20 minutes later.
Yeah, we've done that a few times.
You're doing it right now.
I remember. No, not right now. I remember back. back in Gamescom, playing around with Martin and with Jurg scowling in the corner because we were doing silly things. People were giving us things in the chat to do, like slowly rotate your chair and just like we just kind of do that,
Yeah.
and he's up in the corner there, just like getting angrier and angrier at us for going off the script.
Yeah, well, the good thing is my window in the live stream was so small that you
Yeah.
actually can't see what that I was angry, so it can't be seen in the recording and can't be seen in the live stream because that was Skype before it allowed more than
Yeah.
five people in a call in
Mhm.
big windows. So mine was very small, and we actually did use OBS for screen
Yeah.
recording. So
Yeah, well, that's
was
why you were
kind
there
of
because
a-
you were broadcasting, you were streaming the video. So
right.
you weren't
right.
you weren't actively taking part in the thing. You were just streaming the video for us. So
Yeah.
like you didn't even like chime in to say anything because normally you would just berate us for being idiots, and you just sat there
Right.
scowling, and we're like, I'm like I could see, I'm like, oh, he's
Oh
getting
no, but
angry.
no.
I mean,
Yeah.
we had this. I mean, we in another call, different Gamescom, but I think it was the Gamescom after. We actually had the longest retro panel ever, like
Mhm.
12 people, and the headache to make sure that people come back on when they disconnect
Yeah.
because their video stopped working or their calls dropped or whatever. The headache was immense to
That
get
one
all
was-
those 12 people on the call at the same time.
That's
and
the
it
one where
was
everyone was
live.
dropping off for me, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
AJ had
I
a
got
connection
yeah. We got
problem.
like 12 people on this thing, and I think like I was one of the moderators of this panel, and
Yeah,
one by
exactly. And
one
you were
they're
recording. You were
yeah.
actually recording it.
Right.
Yeah.
And one by one, everyone is just freezing and dropping out. And I'm like, is this just me? And it
Oh,
was
no.
just me. But I'm like, all right, so I got to keep it together and keep doing this, even though everyone is slowly disappearing from my screen. And I'm like, okay, wrap it up because I can't see anybody anymore. You know, like
Oh
it was
shit.
it was
Oh
terrible.
god.
Yeah.
I'm
And we
texting
had,
him.
like-
I'm like, is this just me? And he's like, yeah, it is. I'm like, damn
Oh,
it.
it's done that a couple
Yeah,
of times for
and-
me as
and-
well. Like
and-
we had like a group commentary on one of my band put together a version of King's Quest VI's Girl in the Tower, and we had this sort of group commentary where we were all going to talk about it, and we invited everyone in the band because we all live in like weird places. I live in Denmark. Fred lives in Denmark, plays the synths. Our guitar player lives in Chicago. Our bass player lives in Melbourne in Australia. So it was really hard to get everyone together. And the dude in Melbourne, Michael, he rocked up a bit late, but we were like, we're using Zencaster. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna fix all this shit together. And I'm running the show, and I keep getting error messages that saying this person is trying to connect. I was like, yeah, but he's here already. What the fuck are you complaining about? So let's just keep going. And then we get the files back, and it's just literally him for the last 10 minutes, and everything else just did not record. So fuck. So yeah, I've been there.
Ooh.
Boy.
Wow. But fortunately, we never had a totally failed recording where we couldn't release anything. That was
Yeah.
that
I
has
have-
been a nightmare.
With Al Lowe,
Yeah.
that was great. That was great. I had
Ooh.
an interview back when I was
Oh,
doing my
dear.
podcast, and OBS was not really a thing yet, and at least we weren't using it for like podcasting and shit. So and I was using Skype, and I got one of those third-party Skype recorder applications that detect a Skype call
Before
they had cloud recording,
Ah,
and I
right.
tested this thing. It worked fine. I think I even paid for a license and shit. And I get on the horn with Al, and we say, hi, how you doing? Yeah, and then we launch into this like an hour and 30 minute. He said all these great things, gave me like history of technology that Sierra had and was then thrown away, and all this shit. It was a great interview. And I look at the file afterwards, and it's literally 30 seconds. Me saying, hi, how are you doing? Al saying, pretty good, how are you? End of file.
Oh.
That sucked.
Ooh.
I got my revenge.
Holy shit.
Al came on my channel last year, I think, and reiterated all the cool shit he said, and I put it in a video. And he was like, "Did you get it this time?" I was like, "Yeah, I got it."
Well, you're lucky there. Yeah, I mean, we have been pretty lucky so far, and that
Yeah.
so far we never had a total
Never had to do
disaster.
it twice. Yeah. Never had to do
Yeah.
it twice.
There was one thing, because 2 years prior to the podcast, I did my historical interviews already, and I had one case where an update of Skype broke the third party recorder software that I had, so I had to buy. I had to pull the raw audio and video streams from the temp folder of Windows.
I didn't know you could do that.
which I luckily found out in time, because, as you know, temporary folders are periodically deleted or emptied by the system, because they are temporary files, not supposed to be there. So, and then I had to manually re-encode the raw audio and video files. But it worked. In the end, it worked. But for a few minutes, I thought, "Holy crap! The interview is over."
Oh God.
Didn't happen, but we got it. Yeah. Saying about that. What AJ said, that his connection problem was only on his side. The special thing about this retro panel is, and that is why we had 12 people, we actually had from the retro community from all different countries. We had one from France, somebody from Spain, one from the USA, 2 people from Germany, so we actually had different countries and different
time
perspectives, and that was the special thing there.
Well, I suppose
Well,
like French,
the
Germany,
good thing-
Spain. Yeah,
You know yourself, you're exactly.
It's just the poor
It's the
fucking
same-
American.
same shit.
And if you get Australian into the mix, it is like you have a window of like an hour and a half before they either get up or go to bed.
I know.
Like it's
I know.
really shit. So you got one guy like my band is really like I do shit on my end. I sent it to the guitar player. He does all the mixing as well and play guitar. And I just go to bed and then I wake up the next morning to see what he's done. And for our bass player,
Right.
it's like the whole thing because it goes from me, guitar player in Chicago, to Melbourne for him to do bass on. So we wait 2 days because the time zone switchover just misses both of us. It's great fun.
Right. Well, not only Australia, also Japan.
Oh, yeah.
is
We don't
pretty
have a
fun
Japanese
as well.
person in our band.
Because it goes in the other other direction.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's just like
So,
time zones are like
That's
a thing.
that's
Like
special.
I mean, I know North Americans. I realize it's quite a big country and all that. But the fact that you can be in a state and have up to like 3 different time zones in a single state. I'm like, how the fuck that means if you go for like a drive, like a cross state drive, you have to set your watch 3 times. The hell is wrong with you?
Yeah, kinda. Yeah, it's not fun.
It's like,
Right.
I think that's why Saturday Night Live keeps like
I guess-
fucking up the second time they roll because they have to do it twice in an evening. So I'm told. I watched
Yeah.
30 Rock. I didn't watch Saturday Night Live.
I don't think
They do it twice.
They just do it.
They do it
once
East
at,
Coast and West Coast.
do they?
They do 2 live shows, don't they? Or at least they.
I did not. I had no idea. I know the East Coast live show because that's where I am. But I didn't know
I'm
they did
pretty-
another one.
A Danish person tells how
Okay, I'll
USA
say-
works.
I just always thought came out at the raw. It wasn't at like midnight or whatever it normally would be on. It came on at a different.
Maybe they used to,
different
but
time.
you got to remember, I'm
could
getting
be-
my
I could be
information
off.
from 30 Rock, which was written by Tina Fey, who used to work at Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
So maybe it's wrong. I don't know. Maybe they just used to do it and now they don't.
So, question is, apart from American television and time zones, what are your
More
future
cowbell.
plans?
Sorry, that's still Saturday Night Live.
Moo.
More mooing? Okay, we've covered the moo. We're past the moo now.
You said.
Oh yeah, no,
cowbells.
it's a Christopher Walken sketch, Blue Oyster Cult. Look it up. It's because Christopher Walken is a fantastic actor in the sense that he's not like Jack Nicholson. He's not really an actor per se. You're not watching him do a character. You're watching Christopher Walken. He's got lines and shit. But he's fascinating because he's Christopher Walken.
I know.
Jack Nicholson's the same.
I know. There's a whole essay about his special way of
Yeah.
speaking English because of the neighborhood he grew up in.
And he was in an
I know.
FMV game called Ripper, and it's like that is the only reason you should play that game is because Christopher Walken is in it, and he fucking hams it up. It's so good.
So you also are a fan of Severance and watch it on Apple TV+.
I don't really
right?
watch TV shows anymore. Sorry.
You should, because Severance, Christopher Walken has a big role in there.
First of all, I'm very picky when it comes to what kind of media. I don't like superhero stuff, and everything seems to be superhero stuff at the moment. I don't like gangster dramas. I don't like.
It's not. Look up the trailer. It's totally
anything that has to do with swords and medieval shit. I know it's not that either, but I'm into sci-fi and horror movies. So if it doesn't have a ghost or a spaceship in it, it can get fucked. Anyway,
Wow.
Christopher Walken was in an FMV game. That's fine. My future plans. Just gonna keep doing the shit I'm doing. Really.
And finishing all your adventure games on Steam.
No, that would take forever. What I've got currently going is the Police Quest retrospective. I'm gonna tear that a new asshole because I'm coming up on Police Quest 4, Racist Open Season, which is gonna be really, really strange to make fun of because that's a touchy subject, and Daryl F. Gates can get fucked. And I'm also doing on a much lighter note, I'm doing a Tex Murphy retrospective series, and I'm up to the Pandora Directive.
Ooh, but didn't you already?
I've put out 3 videos, but I'm going to cover the whole series. So I put out Mean Streets, Mars Memorandum, Under a Killing Moon, and now I'm up to the Pandora Directive. And me and the guy who wrote the Tex Murphy games, Aaron Connors, have kind of buddied up since I did a panel at the Adventure Game Fanfare in Tacoma last year. We kind of buddied up, and he's writing a sort of novelization of Martian Memorandum. So we've kind of been talking about that, and did an interview and all sorts of stuff. So that's been fun. So I'm going to do Pandora Directive, which is one of my favorite games of all time. Period. It's one of the most ambitious games, one of the most well-designed games. It has a great story. And I love that game so much. And then it comes Overseer, which is a game. And then comes Tesla Effect, which is also a game. So that's going to be fun. And
But how about the game they didn't release, the last installment, and it actually
the
they
Poison
canceled it.
Pawn.
the Poison Pawn. Yeah, that one's got it. I'm gonna try and cover that as best I can in the Overseer, because it was technically just a remake of Overseer. Because Overseer is one of those Dark Ages games we talked about earlier. Overseer is really hard to get running in a good way.
Yeah.
I got it, and I got a tutorial on my blog.
I also did
how
it.
to do it.
I streamed it a few years ago. I always say a few years because my memory is terrible. The way I did it was I got it running on my desktop computer, but while it was running, I couldn't use OBS and I couldn't use my second screen. OBS just simply wouldn't show the game. So I got my capture card, your console capture card, my Elgato HD 50, whatever the fuck it is, plug that in to...
Yeah, I got the same one.
Yeah, because it's got what is it? Is it composite out? What the hell is it?
It's actually
SVID.
It actually
That's the one.
supports. It actually
Yeah, because I had a PS2 at one point, and I wanted to capture
S-Video,
PS2.
yeah. And it also supports Chroma Luma from the Commodore 64.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
It supports the native. It supports
that's
the native Chroma Luma from the
Yeah, 'cause
Commodore
that's basically
64.
Yeah.
just
Oh,
S-Video.
S-Video. That's the one.
Nah, it's
Is it?
not. It's not
That's-
so easy, AJ.
That's S video on that screen back there, directly from the C64.
Yeah, but it's not like basically. It's still
Here they go again.
different. Not all capture cards. Not all capture
Round
cards can
one.
handle it.
Fight.
I'm true, but it generally works with S video and the Chroma Luma is more or less.
More or less. You see, that's
It's
the
a
thing.
shame my
That's the
microwave broke a couple of days ago because I was going to get popcorn for this shit. Um,
it's interesting because the auto detection actually doesn't work. This what it says. The signal is actually wrong, but it still displays correctly.
Right.
So,
anyway, I had a
Yeah.
PS2.
Yeah, right. It's
I was
slightly
going to
different
capture
signal.
PS2. As far as I know, the HD50 is the one that has the S-Video, whatever it has. It has a PS2 like plug you can use with it, and you can also capture PS3.
Exactly.
I think it's actually the PS3. Because the PS3 had this, like, if you try and plug HDMI into a capture card with the PS3, it blocks the signal because fuck Sony. So you have to use that special cable, and the HD60 doesn't come with that. Anyway, to finish my story, what I did was I plugged my desktop computer into the capture card and streamed it from a laptop next to me. So I was looking at the game here. Everything Twitch related was down here, including the chat. So that was a fun stream, but I somehow got it working with the DVD videos. I'm still waiting for ScumVM to start supporting the Tex Murphy games because A, they should get on that, and two, that means we can actually fucking play Overseer. Poison Pawn was an Overseer remake to begin with. They got all the FMVs and they were going to rebuild the levels in Unity, and it was just basically going to be an Overseer remake so people could play the fucking thing again. And then the people at Big Finish Games, which is what the Access software employees who did Tesla Effect called themselves at this point, got wind of it and was like, yeah, that's a fucking great idea. Do you know what we should do? Because Aaron wrote this novel called The Poison Pawn, which is an Overseer retelling. We should turn that novel into the remake you guys are doing. We should turn that into the game. So we're going to shoot new FMV. We're going to wrap this thing in like a bunch of different shit and add all this more shit. And it just became, well, it started as a fan project and now it's turning into a semi-official thing. But we're still not getting paid for this. And you guys are going to sell it. And it's just, it kind of soured. So in the end, they just said, you know what? Fuck it. Let's not do it. I've seen some of the FMV, like Matt Van Roon, the guy who did VFX and visual compositing for Tesla Effect. He was at the panel I moderated, and after the panel, he was like, "Hey, do you want to see some of the FMV we shot for Poison Pawn?" I was like, "Yeah, why not?" So he took me out. It was like in the middle of the hall. Anyone could walk up behind him, and he cracked open his laptop and just started playing FMVs. Chris Jones in the fedora talking to someone that's just like, yeah, and you look over at Matt, and he's just going, wish we could use this. That would be great. But yeah, and it was.
So you think there will never be another game?
Aaron says they have one more game in them. Chris Jones is off. He's running his own business. It has to do with golf because Access Software was known for two things: Tex Murphy and golf games, and Microsoft bought them for their golf games and told them to, never mind this Tex Murphy adventure game bullshit, just make golf games for the rest of eternity. And then they left and they formed Big Finish. They got the rights to Tex Murphy. Tesla Effect happened. And then Chris Jones fucked off and started a company called True Golf, which he's still working at and is kind of busy doing that. Once he's got his fill of golf or whatever the hell he's doing, and he comes back to Big Finish Games, Aaron says they have one more Tex game in them because everyone's getting older and we don't want to do the AI de-aging kind of thing because that's a terrible thing. And we just one more game. That's it. That's where we're at. But he's opened the door for ideas for if there's going to be future Tex Murphy games that they just like go back to the pixel art style of like Martian Memorandum. And just do them like that. Just have Chris do the voiceover because the voice is really what people want to hear anyway. It's that Tex Murphy voice. So they could still pump out games. Just go back to and he was like, yeah, but we're like known for the the FMV pushing the envelope. Do you think people would accept us going retro? And it's like, yes. Are you fucking kidding me, man? Yeah.
FMV ain't pushing the envelope.
Well, no,
anymore.
but Access Software were always like, you know what? Let's just put everything in the fucking kitchen sink in our games. Like the first, like Mean Streets is an adventure game, flight sim, shoot 'em up, question suspects hybrid.
Yeah.
Like what the fuck were you guys smoking?
And real audio.
Sound. Yeah, and
Real Sound.
Real
Was
Sound,
it
and
Real
it
Sound?
came out
Real
on the
Sound?
C64. I had to go get a.
That's what I played it on.
Poor you. I had to go and get a copy of this thing because I refused to believe it existed. I thought the YouTube videos were just a mock-up of someone going, Meat Streets on the C64. Come on. No, it actually exists, and I've actually played it for myself.
Yeah.
I'm like, Jesus Christ, how the hell did they do that? 2 discs,
Yeah.
and nothing's missing.
Right.
Yep.
Even the stupid flight
Back
sim
then.
isn't there.
Well, the I mean, what is missing is actually the digitized speech that they.
That's
didn't
right. But the
include.
digitized speech was so lo-fi in the
Yeah.
PC version anyway. Oh, it's impressive it was there. But there's a funny story. Like I was streaming the game, PC version, and we're going through the whole thing. You call up one of your informants, Vanessa. No, sorry, Lee. Vanessa is your secretary. Lee is your informant. And if you ask her something, usually she names a price. And if you lowball her, she says, be realistic. But because the speech is so lo-fi, someone in my chat went, did she just say, feed me a lipstick? And that, and
Nah, I saw that.
and that's
I
now a
saw
meme.
that,
Like
yeah.
anytime every time we mentioned Lee, you just put a little lipstick in the corner. Just feed me a lipstick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be realistic. Yeah, I saw that. I saw that stream. You put that stream on YouTube on your channel. I was like, oh, that was hilarious, right? But the C64 actually was capable
Yep.
of doing that. There were
Oh yeah,
many games.
I remember. Skate or
with,
Die had a Skate or Die had an
digitized
intro with
speech.
digitized speech. Yeah, the fucking
And they and they had actually one of the few games that actually was built around a lot of digitized speech was actually Barbie.
yeah, because it
Yeah.
like meant for kids.
Because Ken and Barbie always had a phone call at the beginning of the day. Let's
Mhm.
meet at the beach, or let's meet at the disco, or
And
whatever.
it would
And it would always go like, "Hi Barbie, it's Ken," or sometimes it would be like, "Hi Barbie, it's Ken. Let's meet 1 hour later," or something.
Haven't
but
played
it
that
but it
one.
was like C64 compressed, so it's it's true. I would have.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, 4
Oh yeah, but it's
kilohertz,
still
right?
great. But what I really would have loved is if Ken had your accent. That would have been fucking spectacular. Hello,
A German
just
accent.
Yeah.
Oh my
hello,
God,
Bobby.
no.
It is Ken. Would you like to meet up at the beach? That'd be great. I'd love it. No, that would be.
Ah, come on. Oh, my English is
No,
not
no. I'm kidding.
Germanized.
I'm just.
Hopefully.
I've always been fascinated with because like foreign language stuff in Denmark is subtitled. Germans dub everything as the French do.
I know.
French,
It's horrible.
Spanish.
It's
Well,
horrible. It's horrible.
got some famous actors, like famous German actors, doing dubs and shit. And the funny thing is,
Still horrible.
Americans do the same thing. They get foreign language content in. They get anime from Japan and whatever, and they dub the thing, and they get big Hollywood names to do their dubbings as well. Danish people don't do that. So I was looking into like Space Quest 6 got a full dub in German, and I only played that like fairly recently. My German is not very good. Like I said, it's a compulsory language in Danish schools, but that doesn't mean I speak it. But I know Space Quest 6 by heart. So it was really fun to go through and like listen to the translated lines of in the German version, particularly that every time there's a couple of Easter eggs where someone like yells at the narrator voice, Gary Owens in the original version. But they changed it so that they actually yell at the German actor. I forget his name or whatever, but like they put his name in and everything. I thought that was fun. And then I played the French version, and I think the difference between the two was the German actors sounded like they were reading a phone book. It sounded like they were just mentally checked out. They were just like, why are we reading this shit? And the French actors just fucking went for it. Like they really sounded to it.
Oh man, they threw in their best.
Oh yeah, it's French croissant. Let's go. Voulez-vous, man?
Yeah, exactly.
all the way. Which is weird because I remember as a kid, I saw before rentals, before everything else, Star Trek. I think it was Star Trek Five is playing on. I mean, I saw it on a TV listing somewhere, and we had satellite TV, and I was like, yes, I'm gonna tape Star Trek Five and can watch Star Trek Five. And no, it must have been 6 because fuck Star Trek Five. Anyway, I'm gonna record this Star Trek movie, whatever it is, and my dad looked at the TV listing and said, yeah, it's on a German channel, and I go, yeah, why? Yeah, but they're probably gonna dub it, and I was like, no, it's late at night, because in Denmark only children's entertainment gets dubbed, and everything else is subtitled. So if this show like an American movie late at night, you can be pretty sure it's going to be subtitled, right? And I thought Germany was the same. So I start the VCR at like 9 p.m. on ZDF and just wait for lines to be spoken. And I go, that's not Captain Kirk's voice. God damn it. God damn it. My dad was right.
Yeah. But here's an interesting thing, though, that Netflix changed a bit how the environment of series work and the translation stuff, because I watched a series that was produced in Denmark.
Poor fucker. I'm very sorry.
Instead, I don't know what
Core fucker. Core fucker is our main export. We fuck a lot of cores in there. I have no idea what you're talking about. Spell it.
What?
Thought he said poor fucker.
Poor fucker.
P-O-O-R.
No, we have a very robust socialist system in Denmark. We do not fuck the poor. I don't know. Spell it for me.
No, I still don't understand what you were saying, but never mind. Anyway, I wanted to say that there was this series from Denmark. I don't remember what it was called on Netflix. And instead of what you usually have, like American or British people making the English dub version. For example, when you watch just like South Korean series or something, some English actors speak in the English translation, right? So it's dubbed in English. But for this Spanish, for the Danish show, they actually used the same actors that spoke obviously in their native Danish language, also the English lines. So that means all actors had different levels of Danish accents in their English.
Yeah.
And everybody had pretty different skill levels on fluency and how they would pronounce words. And it was like, are those people from different countries?
That was a bad choice.
It was like,
that was a bad choice.
Cow.
Oh, I just realized what the poor fucker thing was. That was because you said I watched a Danish TV show and I muttered poor fucker, something like I'm sorry, poor fucker, because I think pretty much everything we've done since 1996 has been terrible.
I mean, the series was pretty cool, but I don't know if the idea of getting the actors themselves.
No, that was a terrible idea. But I thought you were saying the name of the show was Poor Fucker or Core Fucker or something. So that's where the confusion erupted.
No.
Like,
No. And I found that interesting.
That's a terrible idea.
Do this. Obviously, it was cheaper. Like, hey, I mean, you acted yourself in Danish. Now you can do the same lines in English.
That's not gonna fly. What was it? There was another. There's like one Disney movie where the protagonist, the one who gave the performance in English, also was a native speaker of some other country. So she did her own voice in, I think it was Spanish, or Portuguese or something like that. I was like, yeah, good on you. But really, you should cast people who actually speak the language. What I thought was really funny was if you've ever seen the Japanese dub of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, they had like a short snip of that on the DVD as an extra because they didn't so much dub the movie. They sort of realized that would be pointless. So what they have is instead a narrator who, like, in a sort of Gary Owens way, really sort of mock traditionally, like really staunchly describes what's going on over all the dialogue.
Ooh, like in those old Russian and Polish movies where one person speaks all the lines of all the actors.
Yeah, exactly. We used to do that with children's shows
Bodyguard.
from like Pee Longstockings and shit like that. Like, we wouldn't bother actually dubbing them for Danish kids because they'd see the mouth movements not matching up, which is something we apparently notice and Germans don't. But I'm sorry to.
I do it.
Okay.
I do it.
Let's just switch to mocking the Spanish and French instead because they're not here, and they do the same thing. But anyway, so they didn't bother doing that with like Pee Longstockings and shit. They just had a lady narrating what was going on.
True. Anyway,
I just love when you watch the Japanese, like the animation and whatnot, the anime, and they dub it into English, and the things that are said in Japanese, there's way more of it in a short section than there is in English. So the English is always like, we need to go to blah, 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 blah. And it's just this big, long, like super fast one run-on word that ends with,
Speed Razor, yes!
For some reason.
Oh,
yes, yes.
The bass player in my band, Michael, he does a great Speed Razor. He does, oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Anime is famous for that. And,
Yeah. I love that.
Anyway.
Oh yeah. What am I going to do in the future? I never finished that. Yeah. Police script for Tex Murphy.
Yeah, that was actually my final. That was supposed to be my final question, by the way.
I've always wanted to be a game developer. I've tried to do it like 2 or 3 times. Get into full-time game development. It's never going to happen. So I'm just going to make free time games whenever I think I can pull it together. I did the beta testing on Space Venture. That's all done and dusted with.
When your kid is grown up.
Probably, maybe. I should have done it when he was a baby, and I actually tried to do it when he was a baby because you have some free time when all they want is their mom and maybe a diaper change. But no, it's not. It's just not going to happen. I always wanted to do it, but I can never find someone who can actually draw like graphics and shit. I can do everything else: the programming, writing, soundtrack, all that sort of shit. I cannot draw for shit, and that's always been my big that's always held me back.
AI?
No, fuck
ChatGPT.
that. No. I've thought about doing FMV, but like Martian Memorandum type FMV where you like green screen people and just have like their face, but someone else is doing the voice kind of thing. But that means I'd actually have to go out and socialize, and fuck that. Podcast is back on. I did with my guitar friend from Chicago. I did the soundtrack for Space Quest 3 3D. Which was fun because we got to expand the soundtrack, and now there's another Space Quest 3 remake in traditional VGA, like 320x200 VGA. I'm doing some writing on that one, some extra writing, for click events, stuff that's not important. I'm doing the writing for that. And we just did Soups On, which is a reimagining of the 7th Guest and 11th Hour soundtracks with the original composer's blessing and, more importantly, copyright permission, which we got printed on a quadruple vinyl, pressed on a quadruple vinyl, which we kickstarted, and in true Space Venture fashion, we are now coming up on 2 years started, and in true Space Venture fashion, we are now coming up on 2 years for that. So I could ship out all started, and in true Space Venture fashion, we are now coming up on 2 years.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a feat because we've got people all around the world, but we're gonna hopefully, if things go right, we'll be playing at the Portland Retro Expo. Fuck, I forget the name of it. Yeah, that thing in Portland, the retro thing in Portland, baby. We're crossing our fingers. We're looking into
Okay.
venues and shit, and they're actually going to fly us out and do that. Yeah, so that's going to be fun.
Nice.
Other than that, try and be a good dad.
YouTube.
Yeah, well, YouTube. Yeah, I already mentioned the things I'm going to do. I'm going to try and play some current games, but I can't promise too much. You know what? I am playing the weirdest, most difficult, most obtuse adventure game of all time. I've wanted to cover it for ages and ages. Look up a game called Blue Eyes. It was released by Psygnosis, or Psygnosis, however you pronounce that. I call them Psygnosis. Yeah.
Diagnosis.
Blue Eyes is one of the most unfathomable pieces of media ever put out. There was a lot of going on when that thing was development. So I want to do it. So I'm playing that one right now. Again, old game, not anything current at all. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. And then participating in podcasts with lovely people who I get to with
Thank you.
accents
Thank
I make
you,
fun
yeah.
of.
Who totally confused you because you thought we would only be talking about the 664 and we didn't even cover it.
I talk more
properly.
C64 than
What a
I've
shame.
done in previous podcasts.
Yeah,
Hey, wait,
well,
which
there you go.
Yeah, but basically only Maniac Mansion and
well, we can talk about Head the Ball, which was my favorite platformer when I was a kid. I never got past the second level, but it was fun with the sort of nightmarish
Alright.
black background, but the little ball going. Dee, 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 dee. Although, weirdly, I never played Great Giant Sisters. I never had that, but I had Head the Ball.
I
You're not,
totally
you're
don't
not,
like the
you're
game.
not missing out.
Yeah, that's one of the things AJ and I agree on. I don't like the game, and despite Chris Hülsbeck is praised for it, I don't like the soundtrack either.
Oh, come on, let's talk C64 music here for a bit, because the sit chip is my big love, and every time I do arrangement for our band, I always throw in this big fat fuck off saw wave that's very C64ish, and my bandmate, especially our guitar player, just rolls his eyes and goes, "You can't go 5 minutes without a saw wave, can you?" No. No, I cannot. And it's all the C64's fault. We did a cover mashup of Maniac Mansion and Zach McCracken in like industrial rock, industrial metal style. And instead of using the Tandy 3 voice from the PC version, I went and sampled the original C64 version, because those are the best versions of those soundtracks. I got the from Maniac Mansion and all that, put that in as a sample. So, God damn it, I love the C64. Giant Sisters was a great soundtrack. Parallax, which I can't remember who the fuck composed Parallax, but there's one track when you get out of the spaceship and walk around. It's the most hauntingly beautiful C64 piece ever made. Obviously, everything that Rob Hubbard touched was magic. But the one, and this, my favorite, it's easily in the top 3 favorite soundtracks of all time. Easily my favorite C64 soundtrack.
Parallax
Martin
is
Galloway.
Martin
There you go. The main theme is kind of weird, but once you get out of the spaceship and walk around, oh god, it's beautiful. But the best C64 soundtrack of all time, Matt Gray's Last Ninja 2. Fuck me, that thing rocks. And it rocks so hard that when he did a re-recording of it with modern instrumentations and shit, my wife
I know.
yeah,
It's
my
on
wife
YouTube.
kickstart back that thing as a, I think it was a Christmas present, because if you kickstarted it at a certain level, you got a double picture disc vinyl of the soundtrack, and it's on my shelf downstairs now. Damn, that's a good soundtrack. Love the C64.
I know he is
I did.
brilliant. He is brilliant.
Yeah.
If you like Maniac Mansion and Zack McCracken and so on, I got an email interview like almost 10 years ago with Chris Crick, who worked also on the soundtrack of those things, and used to work for Epix, and before that he worked for Lucasfilm Games. So I will pull it out of our archives. And
Thank
send
you. I
it
would
to
love
you.
to, because
Pretty sure you
because
will enjoy
I
it.
showed that industrial metal version we did. I showed that to David Fox, because he was on Twitter at the time and how Blue Sky and stuff, and he seems to tolerate my company. So I sent him that, and he was like, "Yeah, that sounds fucking great." But I wish that because I only had like one composer listed as the original composer, like in the credits, and he was like, "Yeah, but actually, this other dude did Zach McCracken. I think that was what it was." So I was like, "Oh, you got to put both of them in there." So yeah, of course, of course. Everyone needs to get their credit stuff. So thanks, David Fox, for that. But I would love to show our version to the guy who actually wrote the fucking thing. That would be great.
Here's the interesting thing. Yeah, it's the same name, so it's and and there was a time where I called up every 50 numbers. And media article of him. So there, in the update, I saw he used to have a band where he was playing in, and so I emailed the band, and the email address of the band was still valid. And then they told me which phone book entry is actually the correct one to call. And then I called once per week for a year until he picked up.
Yeah, because his bandmate had told him, "There's this weird German
and
stalker who keeps asking about your phone number."
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is that then he said, "Yeah, I will do the interview," and then sent me an email with the questions. I will answer them. Then he didn't, because a few days after my phone call, his mother died. So, and then I tried again for another year. And then he said, like, "Sorry, my mother died a few days after your phone call, so I didn't answer the email." And so after 2 years, I finally got answers to the questions from 4 years from 2 years
Wow.
prior. So it took me 2 years to actually get this interview from planning stage to the actual interview
Yeah,
getting
and
finished.
an additional 1 year of phoning up different Chris's in a phone directory.
No, that only
okay,
took a
okay,
week.
fine. Because I'm picturing like
mean,
Matthew Broderick in War Games, just putting his phone in the receiver and just having it go through every number until it gets. God, I love that movie as well.
Yeah, I mean, I had a flat rate at Skype for international calls, so it didn't really cost me anything.
And I really shouldn't make fun, because when I was a kid in like 96 or something, 95, 96, I figured out how Sierra's email system worked. Back when Sierra was still a thing. It was basically first name dot last name at Sierra.com. And I ended up emailing Jane Jensen, Scott Murphy, Mark Crow, Ken Williams even answered emails. Because if you knew the system, you could just email anybody you saw in the credits.
It still works nowadays for some companies.
But that was pretty cool. That's how I sort of wormed my in and did some interviews for my GeoCities fan page back in '96 or something.
I hope you got it back.
It's on archive.org. I think there was a service that actually backed up all the old GeoCities pages before it got lost, so it's there somewhere. It's kind of cringy because it was a 16-year-old idiot from Denmark asking email questions. It's not my proudest moment. I've done better work since then. Asking email questions is not my proudest
At
moment.
16,
I've done better
I got
work
the
since.
idea for the Scene World Disc Mag, and look at what
Were you
it led
16
to.
at the time?
I was 16 at the time. I had the idea. Yes.
Oh, good lord.
And he's old enough to drink now.
I know.
Yeah.
Which is a funny joke
Alrighty.
For North Americans, but for Danish people, we're allowed to drink when we're 16.
Yeah. That's.
And
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
it
Germany,
sucks
we
here.
were even allowed to smoke until they changed the law, and then it was 18 for smoking. But before it was actually 16, and then
I mean, it didn't.
they erased
It
it.
didn't
Over here it's
stop
just
us
like-
from drinking when we were 16, but you know. We had a lot of standing in the woods in the middle of the night in the cold,
Yes.
drinking
Oh,
beers.
I was an exchange
For no
student for a
reason.
year in Syracuse and New York, and one of the last
Okay.
days. I mean, I wasn't a drinker at the time. I was late developer in that area, so to speak. So I was 17-ish, and like on the last couple of last days, my host brother brought like this 6-pack of Budweiser in, and he was like super's like covering it up with his jacket and shit, going, "Here, try this shit." It's like my first taste of beer or whatever.
Oh, and you had Budweiser.
Yeah, I
That
know,
was your
I know.
first-
A couple of
That's
years ago, I went
terrible.
to visit Scott Murphy. Who lives in Seattle, and on the ferry ride, because everything in Seattle is like on an island somewhere, so I had to take a ferry there, and I got Bud Light, which is marginally better. It was the only thing that said Pilsner on the front,
Yeah.
so I went with that. And what really is curious, you can cut all this shit out, by the way. What really is curious to me is that every time an American beer says light, that means it's the regular thing. There's because you can get light beers in Denmark. That means the alcohol percentage is lower. In America, you buy a light beer and it's like the regular percentage. I don't get it.
I
Yeah.
know.
Well, because the light, it's calories.
Oh, that's the Dennis Leary line of he's hop, he's barley, he's protein, he's a meal. He points at his beer bottle.
Yeah. Yeah.
points
Yeah.
at his beer
It's
bottle.
because people were.
Um,
Because after if you drink a lot of beer, you get get the beer gut and
Oh,
whatnot.
I see.
This was
Yes,
like, hey, you
it's
won't get that if you drink the light beer because it's got less calories.
he points at his beer bottle.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, thank you so much for inviting me. Thanks.
The
The Austrian, way is
way
nicer.
is
She
nicer.
talks in her sleep.
Interestingly, though, did you ever play The Last Express?
No, Jordan Mechner. I didn't, because another thing that really gives me anxiety is world timers. Like if a game is on a world timer, I can't play Darkseid either because it does the same thing. You have to be in a certain specific spot at a certain specific time, otherwise the whole game passes you by. I cannot do that.
Right.
And also the art style kind of threw me. I know it's like objectively pretty, but every time I see the animation of things just sort of fading into the next frame kind of thing, for some reason that
I know.
wiggles my head.
But the interesting thing is, however, is the detail he went into for the English version is amazing, because there is a German arms dealer called August Schmidt, and there is an Austrian singer called Miss Wolf. And the fact that the German arms dealer has the biggest and largest German accent in the game, because as an arms dealer you are not educated enough to speak proper English without a broad accent. And in contrast, the Austrian singer, who is so well educated that she speaks perfect accent-free English. It's amazing how much detail he put into the voice acting and selecting the actors for each role, down to their accent and the level of accent of English speech. It's I never saw that ever happening in a PC or computer game ever
Jordan
since.
Mechner is
It's
Jordan
just
Mechner
maddening.
is fantastic. I also love, we were talking about dubbing, Gabriel Knight 2, which takes place primarily in Bavaria, where the whole point is this American dude goes in and doesn't speak a word of German. Obviously, for a German dub of a person who doesn't speak German in Germany with a German voice is going to get weird. So what you guys did was so phenomenally brilliant. You turn it into an accent thing instead. So he's from a different part of Germany and doesn't understand what the fuck the Bavarians are saying. It's sort of like a Danish person goes to Norway. It's sort of the same words, but I can't understand what the fuck you're saying.
It would have
didn't
been
realize he
worked
did that.
better if it was actually Swiss German, because Swiss German, a native German speaker really can't understand. Bavarian, with some luck, we still can. But Swiss, German notions.
One of my favorite bands is an industrial metal band from Switzerland, and their lyrics are in English. He clearly doesn't speak the language very well, so he puts the emphasis on all the wrong syllables, and it's like really adorable. Also, because he's like a foot high. He's this really tiny little guy screaming his lungs out in a language that's almost English but not quite. It's really adorable.
That's great.
It's called
What band is
Cybreed.
that?
Unfortunately, it doesn't exist anymore, but they have a really great album called The Pulse of Awakening, which is just like, it's one of those albums where you cannot skip a single track. It's so good. If you like industrial metal, which not everyone does.
Awesome.
Like all things.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Well, thanks for taking the
No.
time. We branched
Yeah.
out and derailed a lot.
Hey, that's what I
Those are
do.
always the
That's
best.
what I do. Thank you guys so much. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for sitting with us.
Awesome. Keep in touch, and we will let you know.
Yep.
Will be the first episode in April, so pretty soon. I
Fantastic.
guess.
If you guys are on Blue Sky,
Right.
hit me up. I quit Twitter, so hit me up on Blue Sky or Mastodon.
Yeah.
You look like Mastodon people.
I'm actually.
I
on
already
both.
added you on Blue
followed,
Sky.
I followed you on both
Okay.
actually already. You
No,
probably
yeah,
missed it,
I don't really pay attention to the whole follow thing. It's like I don't even look at my YouTube analytics because I don't really care. So
I will just email you the details.
if
and
someone
then you will
writes a
find out.
message to me or someone leaves a comment, apparently, unless it's you, then I take the time to read it and respond to it again. I'm so sorry. I missed it. I somehow missed it.
Never mind. Let me figure it out today. So the answer is you don't need the ISO. Just take the GOG or Steam release and put it in.
Should work.
ScumVM.
Yeah, it should
and
work.
you are fine.
Should work. And if not,
Yep.
hit up his username is Die Forever. He is on Mastodon and he has the Seventh Guest Discord. If it for some reason doesn't work, hit him up. He's the one who did the conversion. He did a lot of quality of life improvements with the 11th hour, like a lot of the AI head-to-head stuff in there, and a lot of other stuff. Really good.
Awesome. Yeah, I was actually refraining from buying it because you said in your YouTube video explicitly to
Wow.
not to.
If you want the proper DOS experience, you go get the ISO. I just said you get the neutered version, and by that I mean you double-click the icon, you get shit. But yeah, you can shove the thing in ScumVM. I probably should have been clearer about that. You're right.
You will have nightmares.
I love it when a person with a German accent says that. It's all the more threatening. You will have.
Good night, man. Thanks. Thanks for
See
the
you guys.
time. See ya. Bye bye.
All right.